I've
Happy
said
New
on
Year.
sneak attack.
Happy New Year. Go on, I won't do it again, I promise.
I've heard that before. Yeah, stop it.
Okay.
I've said on many occasions that as
Yeah.
far as dark tours go, New Orleans takes the cake for the place I've been with the darkest, most horrifying stories. Like, so terrible that they're not even really fun to listen to because if you really think about it, it's just like the most horrendous human suffering and it happened to real people. Um,
I imagine it's a pretty dark place to be today,
oh,
also.
yeah, unfortunate timing on that
Mm.
intro, because horrible things once again have happened
So you,
in
you
New
planned
Orleans.
this bit
Before
of the
that,
podcast before.
yes,
Okay, okay. Because I thought that's a bit
before
opportunistic, even,
I know. Yeah, that would
for
be
us.
pretty horrific. Like to just be
Yeah.
like, oh, in the news today, a guy did horrible atrocities. Let me
That ain't us.
work
That ain't
that
us.
in,
No,
just
we're
as a
better
cute
than
little
that.
intro.
A little bit.
No, I'm referring to things like, there's like the house there that they based one of the seasons of American Horror Story on where like, the slaves were like tortured horribly by the rich people who owned the house and there's like all
Yeah.
kinds of stories like that that are just like, ghost stories aside, like the thing happened and that is really horrible to think about. Um but Mark, I'm afraid Nola is going to have to slip down to number two because the tour I took in Rome, which I will link to because it was wonderful, uh, makes it the darkest place I've ever been to in my entire life.
Beautiful,
Period.
beautiful. And I use the word intentionally because some of the photos you sent me of the catacombs and the fucking
Mm,
bone cellars and such were
yeah,
just art
yeah.
in death,
I
just
will. I
turning
will have
the
to.
cadaver into a fucking a work of necrotic beauty.
Yeah, I'll have to post some pictures of that on our Instagram because we went on like a catacombs tour, and the Capuchin monks are
Mm,
the guys who that came from, and they are basically monks of death, right? Like they came from like a pagan tradition essentially,
mm.
and they wanted to sort of, like a lot of people are doing now, take away the stigma from death, which people were terrified of. And so
Yeah.
their entire like religious practice centered around death. And there's a separate spot that I actually saw on my dark tour, separately from the catacombs tour. And they had like a church of death. So it looks from the outside like any church. But then if you look at the decorations on it, it's all like skulls and skeletons and stuff. And eventually, you know, the Catholic Church wasn't really into like pagans, obviously. But the monks proved themselves to be like helpful when there was like I think there was a flood in Rome and they sort of helped with the bodies and taking care
Mm.
of all of that stuff. And so the church was like, okay, we're going to let you have like your death church. And we'll help you out with that whole thing, but you have to convert to Catholicism. And the monks were like, yeah, okay. Um, but they like very much sort of blend the pagan traditions. So like Halloween, you see all these like hooded guys going through the street, going to their death church and going in and you can see all the like bones and stuff like that that they decorate in all these ornate
Ever
ways.
since, ever since reading The Merchant of Venice back in school, right?
Okay.
Um, this caveat that the church often puts attaches to their good deeds. We'll do this for you, but you got to convert. Got to
Mm-hmm.
convert. That's always struck me as being such an easy thing to fake.
Oh, very much so.
Why can't I
Let
just
me,
go, all right then?
yeah, let me move forward and we will discuss that because this is a
Okay.
thing before I really get into everything that I want to discuss because this was a journey for me here, a really interesting one. Like I said, Rome is the darkest place I've ever been, and as you can imagine, a lot of that has to do with the Catholic Church. Not all of it. There's a lot of other shit that makes Italy a pretty horrendous place for women in particular. But the Catholic Church plays no small part in that.
It does
So,
still have that reputation, Italy. Is that
oh,
earned?
we're,
Is it?
yes, very much so. We are going to
Okay.
go through why that is earned. And as such, this cold open will be a little bit of a downer. I'll say that outright, but we're going to give it the Joag treatment and not make light of it, but
Yeah.
sort of pull out the absurdity of it all. You
Mm,
know, it's dark,
okay.
it's a downer, all that, but it's interesting. And yeah, in that vein, I want to talk a little bit about why Catholicism has made Rome and Italy generally a hellhole for many people.
Feels like I'm going to need to take a little rip of this grape ice vape that I've got here.
Hit the
Huh?
vape. Lots of vapes in Italy. Plenty of those all over the place. I like the
Mm.
purple. So this was kind of a fascinating stop for the Corrigan spirituality train. You're going from the stuff in Rome that we all acknowledge as mythology, right? Like all the pagan gods and, you know, the founding myths and all that stuff that like you learn about when you're in sixth grade or whatever year
For
when you're in
example, just
school.
super briefly, for example,
Like, you know, the gods and stuff like that, Roman gods, right?
okay, yeah, right, fine, fine, fine. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
um, all of those kinds of things that were foundational parts of Rome
Mm.
when it started and appeasing the gods and, you know, them being in charge of stuff and all of that. So you have all of that, and then you're seeing what is considered totally reasonable religion, the Catholic Church, um, and that it just basically took the stuff that they were already doing and like seamlessly transitioned it into
I see.
Catholicism. Like, obviously, a lot of people died and whatnot in the process, but in terms of like the beliefs, they would straight up take like places like the Pantheon, right? And it had like seven pagan figures in it. And when the Catholics took over, they were just like, these are Christian saints now. Like they just
Okay.
straight took the stuff and like there's like hills that were significant to pagan religion, and they were just like, actually, that's about Christian stuff now. And they just adopted everything that the Romans believed and were like, let's just tweak it and make it Catholic. And this was
Ah.
so
So
fascinating.
I'm going
Yeah.
to say this out loud because this is news to me, and you know I have to understand and speak it.
Yes, do
Um,
it.
so you're saying, uh, unless I've misunderstood, that the foundation of Catholicism, Roman Catholicism, is just a kind of remixed
Well,
version of
what I'm saying
fucking
is that,
Mount Olympus and shit.
well, right. So one of the things that you learn, and we talked about this with like Captain Cook and stuff like that, right? When you're a Christian, um, you know, like if you're a missionary or something like that, or when you're learning about missionaries, right? A lot of times when Christians go into other cultures, they will use what religious beliefs or things like that those people already had to help them to understand Christianity. And what you
Fine.
get afterwards is sort of a melding of those things where there are certain beliefs from that tribe or whoever
Mm.
uh, that become a part of that area's
So
version of
almost
Christianity.
teaching through analogy
Right.
to the point where it just becomes integrated into the faith.
Right. And so then you have like stuff that normally Christians would look down upon, pagan religion, things like that, but it's got a Christian twist. So
Mm.
it's fine. They believe in Jesus and all that, and they just maybe have like a weird tradition that the rest of us don't do or something like that, you know? But the ultimately your goal is to convert them or whatever. So if you need to use their own faith, whatever that is, to do it,
Yeah.
then fine,
Yeah.
right? Like
Okay.
that's how we
Okay.
translate it. And looking at Rome, the sort of beginning of this, you know, huge Catholic empire here, you see them doing that, right? Like taking on whatever beliefs people already had there and bringing them into Catholicism. And it as we were walking through these places, right? And what really got me is we went to the Vatican, and the 2025 is a Jubilee year, which is important in the Catholic Church. In the Bible, it's this whole thing. Obviously, this is not how people do it, but in the Bible, all your debts are forgiven in a Jubilee year. And it's like this whole deal. And on this Jubilee year, the Pope opens up this special door. He takes a hammer and he opens up this sealed door. And for the year, that door will be open. And it said if you pass through it, your sins are forgiven.
Fucking stupid, isn't it? Isn't it?
Right. This
Right.
was,
In exactly the same. It just puts me in mind of some of the ridiculous traditions associated with things like royalty. Um,
yes.
you know, this particular crown, this particular scepter,
Yeah.
anointed by God, I wear this because I'm chosen. It's
Right.
fucking
It's
such
arbitrary
horseshit.
bullshit that people
Yes,
clearly
yes,
made up.
yes.
And the portal thing, along with all the stuff of like, oh, they just reappropriated stuff that was Roman and made it Christian. But the portal, the door, really got me because I was thinking like, okay, I was an evangelical. And obviously that's more relationship centered than Catholicism. In which case your sins are forgiven by acceptance of Jesus, right? Like you accept Christ into your heart, sins are forgiven. That's how
Cleansed.
this works, right? So it's directly between you and God. And in Catholicism, obviously, you go through like an intermediary, right? You pray to saints, you go to confession, your sins are forgiven through the act of confession. And the idea that you can walk through a magic door and
Yeah.
skip that stuff
Yeah.
is so transparently bullshit
Yeah.
that I,
And this is a live practice, a live belief in
yes,
2025. This is happening as we
this is
speak. The
happening as
magic
we
door is
speak.
open.
That door was opened Christmas Eve.
Cool.
And people will be walking through it to get their sins forgiven.
And is there like, what if I was a child molester? What if I was a fucking
Forgiven.
uh
I mean, I don't know if
wow.
that's true because I know that like Catholicism has like mortal sins and like
Oh,
venal
there is
sins or
a
venial sins or whatever. There is
tier,
a
a tier.
hierarchy, right?
Okay, okay, okay.
Evangelicalism, there is no tier. If you accept Jesus, you're in. But
Mm,
Catholicism does have a hierarchy of sin. So I don't know if like the door forgives everything. I'm not sure how the magic is supposed to work. But it was so fascinating to me because like when I was in college, I studied a lot of like I took a class on new religions and cults and studied a lot of American religious history. And one of the things that we talked about was Mormonism, right? And Mormonism is so easy to see is fake because we live where it started, right?
yeah.
It's an American religion. Joseph Smith took things and like placed them in like, parts of the Book of Mormon.
I've seen Heretic. I know a
Yeah,
bunch
right.
about Mormonism.
Yeah, he took stuff and it was like and had it happen in upstate New York, right? Like
Yeah.
and since we live here and we know that like this only started, 200 years ago or whatever and that these things never happened. There's no archaeological record of any of the stuff that he said occurred or any of that. It's very easy to go that's transparently bullshit, right? And then when you stand where so much of the Christian faith began and spread and look at how it began, it's like, how does anyone believe this? When you
Yeah.
stand where they made it and you
Yeah.
hear the history of like the popes and all of that stuff, and like that they were deeply corrupt and terrible people a lot of the time. How do people stand in the place where all of this happened and not go, oh my God, do I believe
Yeah.
bullshit?
It's very much where I'm at with it all. Uh, just the slightest bit of scrutiny, just the
Right.
slightest bit of interrogation,
Yeah.
and none of it fucking holds together. None of it. And
Yeah.
even with, fucking Cliff's notes, logic 101 kind of approach to any of this stuff, none of it sticks
Yeah.
together in the slightest. And in
And
2025, I just
it's
can't
yeah, hard to believe
grasp
it's
how
still
it
there.
still is a
And
thing.
I think evangelicalism skirts this by being such a spiritual sort of religion. It's not as concerned with tradition, right?
I
So
see.
you don't necessarily have to do like everything's kind of optional. You don't necessarily have to get baptized. I mean, some denominations you do, but you don't necessarily have
Mm,
to. You don't necessarily like have to take communion, like things like that. Like the ceremony is
yeah,
not the important part of it, and
yeah.
it's about like relationship, which is much more, it's harder to nail down, right? Like this is
So, as a Catholic, then, are there routes by which I can be absolved of sin out with confession, outside of confession?
no. Like so that's the thing is like in Catholicism the traditions are key, right? Like you
Mm,
have to take part in those things, and that's why like people like all my cousins are Catholic, they're all Italian. And they go on Christmas and Easter and they like confess once or twice a year,
American
you know.
Italian.
Yes, American Italian.
Right. So, all
Or
right. So
Italian
not.
American.
All right. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
sure.
but like I said when we discussed this whole thing, it's because
Yes,
we
yes,
have
yes.
ethnic enclaves and
Hmm.
this country is racist, so
I hear
people
you.
stay amongst their people.
I hear you.
But yeah, as such, they have the traditions of Roman Catholicism because they are Italian Americans. Um, and yeah, they don't go all the time. They don't practice, right? It's not like in evangelicalism your whole life revolves around Jesus. And Catholics aren't necessarily like that because they just have traditions that make it so they can kind of shortcut that whole thing.
Mm.
And as long as they perform those acts, you're good. And that is so clear when you go that this is just like people taking stuff from religions that already existed, speaking to people in a way that they understood, and transforming those things into this stuff that also then like upheld a whole bunch of structures that kept very powerful people powerful
Of course.
and, the lowest of the low without any power.
Mm.
And yeah, it was an interesting stop for me on the like, this has been when we first started talking to each other 13, 14 years ago, whatever, like I was still a Christian. And, all these kinds of things have unraveled over time. And this was just a fascinating spot to really sit with
Yes.
how it all started and
How
how,
far you've come.
right. And like, just, yeah, really think about what it all means,
Mm.
what it was meant for, how it's been used
So
and how
I
bullshit
didn't
it is.
realize at the time. I didn't realize at the time when you and I first started communicating
Mhm.
that you were still in it.
Right.
Yeah, very, very fun for me to find that out after the fact
Secret
that
Christian.
you were still you were in a very, very different place, different position in the journey back then.
Yeah,
Fascinating to me.
exactly.
Mm.
So yeah, it was really interesting just to see that and how, you know, all of this stuff, it's just very man-made and silly, but it has so much bearing. It has had so much bearing on culture. This has defined Italian culture for literally 2 millennia.
Just back to the
Um,
magic door for a moment.
yeah, sure.
Is it is it publicly accessible? Can anyone just
I
queue up and
believe
walk
so.
through the
Yeah, I
door,
think
or
everyone
do I have
can.
to? So
No, I
I haven't
think
got to
anyone can.
apply.
Mm-mm.
Okay, good.
Just got to
Oof.
line up. I'm sure there's gonna be long lines, but yeah, you don't have
Worth
to.
it.
I mean, no more sins.
Worth it.
Free trip to heaven.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then, like, I guess you'd have to go through it in another 25 years if you plan to do any sinning in the interim. But,
Well, yeah,
you know,
but if the door opens every 25 years
yeah.
and you're a fit and healthy human, you
You
can
could hit it
plan
a
this,
couple
can't you? You
times.
can,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. You've got two goes at the door, maybe three if you're very lucky.
Yeah.
Um, Let me see, 46. I could go through the door now,
Yeah. Potentially
and
one more time.
yeah, exactly. And then I'd still have another run at the door before the big
Yeah.
day.
So there you go. If you're Catholic,
Well,
hey, get on over there this year. You want to get in before it closes up next Christmas Eve.
love that. Oh, it's open for a year.
It's only open for a year. Yeah, not forever. Just for the year.
So I haven't even got a, there's no real rush because I mean, I guess at the
Yeah, you
end of
got
the year, the queue will be
still
a lot
time.
shorter.
Maybe. Or everyone's going to be there trying to get through,
Uh,
you
it's
know.
like the sales at Bicester Village.
You got to time it.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I said, all of this has defined Italian culture for 2,000 years. And often the people in charge of the Catholic Church were pretty much the righteous gemstones of their time. Popes weren't like excessively holy people. They were
Mm.
born of the equivalent of royal families. They had unseemly proclivities. They had enemies that they used their power to punish. And far from the ideas of Christian love that we hear people spout about today, the church was often an instrument of vengeance and torture.
Yes.
There's this big castle in Rome, Castel Sant'Angelo. And I think it's the oldest structure still standing, like full structure. It's definitely older than the Colosseum and it's still intact. Like, the Colosseum is like has the big chunk
Sure.
out of it and all that
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
stuff. But Castel Sant'Angelo is still intact, pretty much as it always been, because it has been in consistent use. It was built by Emperor Hadrian, and then the Catholics eventually took it over, and they used it as a prison until Italian independence in the late 19th century. And they tortured the ever loving shit out of people there. If you were accused of pretty much anything, they'd send you there and they'd torment you to give you an idea of what you were in for in the afterlife for your sins. And then they'd execute you and send you off, presumably, to that eternal torment, which
Mm.
seems bonkers to me. Like, listen, they're going to know what that eternal torment is like. I don't feel like you need to give them a preview.
No,
That, it's
no, that
fine.
seems, what's the word?
It's
That seems gratuitous.
gratuitous. Yeah, exactly. And it was right where the townspeople could hear the just 24/7 screaming and wailing of the prisoners. The executions were carried out on the bridge in front of it, which is now called Ponte Sant'Angelo. And it was carried out under the Pope's authority. This is what he wanted, for people to be just excruciatingly, horrendously punished for little things. Literally, like if you stole something, Castel Sant'Angelo.
Wow.
And yeah, it's like there was no sin that wouldn't land you in there. So you had to be careful,
Mm.
because it's about keeping the plebs in line, right? Like you want
Mm.
people to be terrified to challenge power in any
You
way.
want the screams to be heard.
Hmm.
Yes.
Exactly. And considering all the dirty laundry we know about the church now, it's no surprise that their attitudes towards women have always been shit, with women being punished for pretty much any action that made a man feel affronted. Roman Catholicism, despite all its neat imagery of Mary and other female saints, is steeped in patriarchy. A good chunk of the reason there are so many female saints is because broads were getting murdered all the time for stepping out of line. Just constant, constant murder of women. Associate professor at Colorado State University, Julia Krebton-Horhager, considers Catholicism to be just one piece of the puzzle, though. One of the unavoidable contributing factors is the history of Italy itself, including its founding myths. For example, in Rome's origin story, the burgeoning city doesn't have enough women, so Patriarch Romulus kidnaps unmarried girls from a nearby tribe called Sabine and keeps them as concubines to impregnate and populate the city. And this scene is celebrated, appearing in famous works of art that are not only on display in Italy, but around the world. You can see them in like paintings of this in Italy. Just great, I mean, in England, just great big artistic renderings of girls being sexually assaulted for the sake of the nation. Not a great start.
Awful.
Yeah. Krebton Horhager goes on to point out that from its earliest days, Roman women were second-class citizens who were physically punished for any act of disobedience. Those punishments going so far as being kicked to death, drowned, and defenestrated. At gladiatorial
Pinned
competitions, huh?
or flayed? What is defenestrated?
Oh,
That's,
thrown out windows.
huh?
Yeah, it's like a horrifying idea.
I've
It's like being
always
like,
thought that meant something else.
hey, look at this, first
Hmm.
day of the year, and you're already
Wonderful.
learning new
Wonderful.
things. Come on, Joab Journey. At gladiatorial competitions, women were only allowed to sit with the slaves, which is a lot to unpack in and of itself. Let me tell you,
Yeah,
I could
yeah,
do a
yeah. Whoa,
whole
whoa, whoa,
thing
whoa, whoa,
on
whoa.
the
Yeah.
gladiators and that whole thing, which is just, yeah, beyond awful. But it's just an illustration of how they were seen in society, right? Like, even the women of high status were treated like that. Nero had his first wife and mother killed, and his second wife kicked to death while pregnant. And no one's going to claim Nero was a good guy, but fuck. If Vestal virgins violated their chastity vows or were thought to have, they were buried alive. And women were subject to something called the right to kiss, which meant that men were allowed to kiss them in order to test to see that they weren't drunk. And if they were found to have had alcohol, they could be killed. So obviously, if you tried to refuse some random man making out with you, you put
Yeah.
yourself at risk of him being like, she's drunk, and having
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
thrown out a window. Both
Defenestrated.
defenestrated. Pow, there it is. Both
I'm not,
pros
just FYI, I'm not enjoying this one bit.
I told you it was going to be
Yeah,
dark. This is
I just
a
want to
rough
get
one.
that.
Yes. Both prostitutes and actresses were traded around, sexually assaulted, and murdered at the whims of the men who employed them. And in Roman law, it was more important that a woman's virginity be preserved than a rapist be punished. So if a
Mm.
woman or girl was being abused, a man close to her would just murder her to protect her chastity. Better dead than deflowered. It was a meme that men are obsessed with the Roman Empire, but when you start to actually look at what the Roman Empire was, it is actually very chilling to think that anyone would be like
Mm.
obsessed with this period of time. And while here in the US or over there in the UK, our governments and politicians put a lot of work into downplaying the atrocities that we did to become the nations we are now,
Great
Italy
point.
doesn't disavow this legacy.
Mm.
These stories are everywhere. You would learn them in school. You got paintings and sculptures and all that kind of stuff. And it's a point of pride instead of something that they're like, oh, sorry about that. The old people were terrible. And then you've got fascism, which rose in the 1930s under Mussolini and held that women's primary role in society was baby making. Otherwise, they were to shut the fuck up and let men run things. And you would think after the collapse of that whole thing and being the out and out baddies in a whole last world war, they'd have rebranded. But instead, they've leaned in with a female president who is not only a member of the fascist party, but actively says that she is not a fascist. I mean, is not a feminist. One of the articles I read even pointed out that she uses the masculine article il before her presidential title, which is wild. Like,
Sure.
imagine that, like, if you're not a language person, right? Like, you have a masculine and a feminine article, you've heard, like, a table can be masculine and a chair can be feminine or things like that, right? So if you are the president, you would be la presidente,
Yeah, I mean,
and she is
you're
il.
describing, for example, if Thatcher had insisted on being called Mr. Thatcher.
Exactly, right? Yeah. She's insisting on being called sir,
Mm.
is essentially what's happening here. Like, that's how much she wants to distance herself from the idea of being a feminist, right? So I guess she got picked. Good for her. Uh, but this is in a country where women couldn't vote until the late 1940s, and divorce wasn't legal till 1980. All of this taken together has led to a country where women are still not only subjugated in both the public and private sphere, but where they're murdered at absolutely obscene rates.
All this said, um, feels doesn't feel particularly Corri like that you would voluntarily go there.
I didn't know this.
Ah, right. Okay. Fine. Fine.
I
Fine. Fine.
went on and this is an interesting thing. Like, I think a thing that all women know about Italy is like the men are kind of like
Sure.
forward, they'll
Like I said
whistle
to you
at you, they'll
before.
grope
Yeah.
you,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
things like that. And like, I'm walking around with my husband. I've been all over the world. I'm like generally not concerned with like what people tell you is scary about another country.
Yeah.
Like everywhere you go, people are always like, "Oh, watch your stuff. You're gonna get pickpocketed." Although some guy did definitely try to pickpocket Keo while we were there. So I will say, if you're near like the Coliseum or like really touristy areas, someone comes up and tries to like shake your hand or something, don't do that. um, but yeah, I like generally with this kind of stuff, I take it with a grain of salt. Like everyone thinks another country is scary.
Of course.
Um, but I didn't know about like this more endemic, like structural stuff. And what was great is on our tour guide was named Yash, and he was from Nepal, but he had been in Italy. He came for college and had been there ever since, so for about a decade. And he had this really great, like, insider outsider perspective of being someone who came from elsewhere and was able to sort of see the place for what it is without the like growing up and being indoctrinated into this being normal.
Mm.
And so he was really honest about the fact that like he loves it there and all of that stuff, but also it's awful. Like, it's like if you're a woman here, it is really shitty. You have no rights and people get murdered, women get murdered all the time. Um, and I thought that was one of the things that was so interesting about this tour is just, yeah, like you don't really get that from, you're not going to
Open.
get it in a
Open.
Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you won't get it from most tour guides. Like, if they're from a place, they're not going to tell you this place kind of sucks. And, your guides to tourism are not going to be like, also, ladies get murdered a lot. But the thing is, like, I'm not in danger because I'm not from there, right? Like, no one's gonna take away my American rights while I'm there. And as I'll discuss, it has more to do with intimate partner violence, right? So, like, Keo isn't suddenly going to murder me because we're in Italy.
Sure.
He's grown
No.
up with the norms of America. So, it's, I don't feel like as a tourist you're in danger in this place. But this is a society that has a huge problem here. So that said, um, uh, the women are murdered at obscene rates, and being murdered by a partner wasn't criminalized in Italy until the 80s.
Just
And
cross off another country where we ain't getting a fan base. Just right, Italy, right under Australia.
Apologies to John Benfield's wife. But yeah, even still, now that it is criminalized, men who kill their partners or exes over jealousy, infidelity, etc., are dealt with leniency as being driven to murder by women who dare to
Now that
defy
it's
them.
criminalized.
Now that it's criminalized since the 80s.
Mm.
Uh, but yeah, murdering a woman who insults them, defies them, etc., is considered totally reasonable. Unless you think this is exaggerated and I'm an American condemning a culture I don't understand, the Institute of the Italian Encyclopedia Treccani named femicide its word of the year in 2023. In Italy, dictionary in Italy, 2023, word of the year femicide. So this is a problem that is not just me being like, whoa, look at these
Mm.
crazy foreigners and their problems. Like,
Mm.
they are dealing with shit right now. A woman
Okay.
is murdered by her partner on average every 3 days in Italy. And the sister of 22-year-old Julia Cecchettin, who was killed by her ex-boyfriend, summed this up in a banger of a quote. She said, quote, "Monsters are healthy sons of the patriarchy and rape culture." In other words, this is a feature, not a bug. Men are like this because it's how society is built to run.
Nicely put.
Mm-hmm. So with all of that in mind, I'm going to tell you two stories, Marko. And I'm going to tell you right now, there is simply no way of knowing the truth of what happened in either one. Normally, I'm in the business of myth busting, but we're going to lean in a little bit today, and here's why. The details aren't as important as what the stories mean to Italian women. The sort of skeletons of the stories are true, but the details are all over the place, which makes perfect sense. These things happened hundreds of years ago to people who weren't like an emperor or the pope, so the records are not exhaustive of their lives. It's like,
Not that I'm expecting you to know this off just off the top of your head.
mm,
But how does Italy react to your president-elect and what that might mean for Italian-American
no,
relations?
was not brought up by anyone
Mm.
there. It wasn't like, which is interesting. That might say something in and of itself, because the last election, we were in Ireland for the
Mm.
week of Trump's inauguration, and every Irish person wanted to talk about it. And all of them, without fail, kept saying to us, "Don't worry about it. Someone will kill him." That was every taxi we got in, every person we met in a pub. "Don't worry, somebody will kill him." I'm like, "I regret to inform you, we are not Irish. That is not going to happen." But
Sorry, I digress.
uh, yeah, but in Italy, no one brought it up. But it is a fascist country, so they're probably not super concerned about Trump.
Mm.
So, uh, let's see. So, the other reason why it's hard to separate truth from fiction in these stories I'm going to tell you is that the women at their centers have become larger than life in the Italian imagination, and the stories have been tweaked and exaggerated over and over to make them more relevant or more exciting or bloodier or more tragic. So I'm going to tell you these tales that are true-ish, but that are emotionally true more than anything else. So, as I've explained, Italy is patriarchal as fuck and always has been. And when the Catholic Church came along, it only made things far worse. There was a general attitude that women were property, and whatever you did with them in the privacy of your own family life was no one else's business. And this is still basically true, as you can tell by that insane femicide rate. But this went double if you were someone of importance, like one Count Francesco Cenci.
Mm.
It's 1599, and Cenci fucking sucks. He's a filthy rich aristocrat from a family of long and storied lineage, but he's horrible to the point of what historycollection.com referred to as, quote, cartoonish villainy. At home, he was physically and sexually abusive to his first and second wives, his daughter, his sons, and his mistress, along with starving his servants to the point that the papal court had to get involved and tell him to feed his staff. Outside of his own house, he was also known for being cruel and violent and confessed to molesting boys. Everyone hated him. He was reviled by all of the locals, and it's even said that Cenci would just straight up kill poor folks for fun.
Mm.
Although this is one of those little tidbits to take with a grain of salt. Not sure if that's accurate or if he was just so vile that it was like, wouldn't be surprised, you know? Regardless, no one in Rome was Team Francesco. He was a terror to his family and the locals, and kind of a pain in the ass to the papal authority that had to be lenient with him, even though he was a total menace. It's like you got this guy who you can't really punish, and yet he is like, constantly causing a ton of problems. He was jailed for a period in his life, but not long because he's rich and untouchable. His daughter, Beatrice Cenci, informed authorities that she was being sexually abused by her father on numerous occasions, but like I said, what happens in his own house is his own business. Eventually, someone told the Count that she was ratting him out. As punishment, he sent Beatrice, her little brother Bernardo, and her mother Lucrezia away to one of his castles outside the city, and there he escalated his horrific behavior, being further away from the prying eyes of the authorities. Now, this castle, known as La Rocca, basically stood on a cliff with a village below, which is kind of a cinematic image.
Beautiful, yes.
Right? And on September 9th, my birthday, give or take a few centuries, Count Cenci came to La Rocca and visited all of his usual abuse upon his wife and daughter. But Beatrice and Lucrezia had had enough. Her other siblings, aside from one younger brother, had escaped her father's grasp in their own ways. Her older sister had petitioned the Pope to marry without her dad's consent, and it was granted. Two of her brothers died in duels, and her older brother, Giacomo, had disowned Francesco and just fucked off elsewhere. But Beatrice wrote to Giacomo begging for help as her situation worsened, and the authorities continued to turn a blind eye to her pleas. Once again, Francesco had discovered Beatrice was telling on him, and he beat her to a pulp. And she told Giacomo that using the old proper channels simply wasn't going to cut it. They had to go nuclear. So Giacomo got on board, as did Lucrezia and Bernardo. Sorry, I read that sentence wrong. As did Lucrezia and Bernardo, the end of sentence. She also brought along a man it said she seduced specifically for the purpose of using him in the plot, Olimpio Calvetti, and a man simply known as Marzio, who was to be the hitman. The idea was that they were to kill Francesco in his bed and then toss him off the aforementioned cliff so that it seemed like an accident. But
And there were no actual correct channels for this man.
right, like no one could punish him. He was just the worst you could do was, let him cool his heels in the jail for a month or whatever, and then he'd be released right back into the wild to do this. So no choices, zero options here. Had to go full Gypsy Rose on this dude. So the guys kind of went too hard, though. After Beatrice dosed her father with a sleeping potion, Olimpio and Marzo snuck into the Count's bedroom, pinned him to the bed, and drove an iron spike through his head before putting his clothes back on him and yeeting him off the ledge.
That's better.
Right. They even broke part of the balcony to make it look like it'd given way, causing him to plunge to his death. They then grabbed the sheets and ran, and the women made a grand show of weeping and wailing until people came to see what was wrong and found the body of Count Cenci. As you can imagine, when his body was found, the authorities were immediately like, this is not a wound you get from falling off a balcony. And the body was already cold as well, indicating it was not freshly dead from the fall. So then they went and they checked out the room from which he'd allegedly fallen, and while the hitman men had taken the sheets, they hadn't cleaned up blood spatter elsewhere in the room. And honestly, there's something kind of funny to me about the fact that the guys who can be talked into being hitmen have always been fucking idiots. Like,
Mm.
if this were 2024, their Google history would just be variations of how to murder someone and make it look like they
Yeah.
fell off a balcony.
Yeah.
Like, bless their hearts.
Best spike for piercing heads.
Right. Exactly. So it took the papal folks no time at all to realize that the Count's family had ganked him, and they were swiftly arrested. When the people of Rome found out what happened, it was a real Luigi Mangione situation. They were like, hell yeah, Beatrice, fuck that guy.
Mm.
And this was a problem for Pope Clement VIII, who was like, whoa, we don't want other folks to start committing copycat patricides because obviously everyone's dad sucked at that point. Like, women are property, men can do whatever they want at home. If you start letting people get away with it, then there's going to be a whole bunch more murders of terrible men in Rome. So the Pope was like, no, no way. And as was custom at the time, they tortured the shit out of all of them in Castel Sant'Angelo, including that whole stretching on the rack deal. They did that to Beatrice. And while Beatrice and lovelorn Olympio kept their mouths shut, Giacomo, Lucrezia, and Bernardo were like, it was Beatrice! It was her idea! She was in charge! All but Bernardo, who was only 12, were sentenced to death. The Romans protested and even
It was
managed to get...
12.
He was 12. Her little brother was only 12 years old. And, oops, sorry. I realized I didn't have my... I couldn't hear myself.
Okay.
But the Romans protested and even managed to get the execution temporarily stopped. But the Pope was like, absolutely not. Kill these clowns. We have to. So they were brought in front of Castle Sant'Angelo on September 11th and executed in various different ways, all to send a message. I'm not exactly sure why he got the worst of it, but Giacomo, he was tortured en route from the castle to the scaffold. And then once there, they smashed his head with a mallet and quartered his corpse. I didn't even know that was an option, just giving him the Gallagher treatment.
Uh,
Lucrezia, oh, go ahead.
and they even tortured him in the bus on the way.
Right,
Fucking
exactly.
hell.
Like, come on, man. Lucrezia and Beatrice were often the old-fashioned way, a choppity chop at the neck with an axe.
Mm.
Little Bernardo had to watch all this happen before being sent to spend the rest of his life as a galley slave in the prison. He was released a year later, however. And do you have any guesses as to what happened to all the property of the Cenci family now that they'd all been done away with?
I want to say was given to the church.
It's given to the Pope.
Yeah,
Pope
yeah, yeah,
Clement
yeah,
VIII got it, and he gave
yeah,
it away to his family.
yeah. Seems fair.
Yeah! Certainly no ulterior
From
motives to kill this entire family here.
uh,
This is like honestly the best thing that could have happened for him. It's like he got rid of the like terrible guy that he couldn't do anything about, and then got to kill the family and take all their land. Catholicism. So for the other story,
but
oh, go ahead.
yeah, no, I mean, listen, that was like 600 years ago.
It was 400 years ago, something like that, somewhere in that
Surely,
vicinity.
surely things are better now,
Really,
aren't they,
everything's great. And femicide was the word of the year in 2023. So everything's going swimmingly over there. But the other story, and then I'll kind of tie them together with a little bow for you. We move forward in time just a few decades to sometime around 1630 in Sicily. The patriarchy hasn't changed in those intervening years. Women are the property of men, and marriage isn't about love. Often, very young girls are wedded to much older men, what basically equates to being sold. And your best bet at the time was to marry a rich but sickly guy who'd kick the bucket and leave you to spend the rest of
Mm,
your days a loaded widow.
yeah.
While women worked, there's pretty much zero upward mobility for them. And everything they did was controlled by their husbands or the church. This led, of course, to basically the same kinds of black markets for things like abortion that we have now, but with a little dose of magic. What historian Linwood Molyneux dubbed the criminal magical underworld. And Mike Dash of the University of Cambridge explains, quote, "This community may have been at least 200 strong in mid-17th century Rome, and numbered among its members wise women, astrologers, alchemists, confidence men, witches, shady apothecaries, and backstreet abortionists, who between them told fortunes and cast horoscopes, sold love potions and lucky charms, cured toothache, and offered to dispose of unwanted babies and husbands." So basically, we're talking about a time before modern medicine, a time of total control over women, a time of superstition, and a time when people were doing whatever the heck they could to get by. So you get these people dealing various solutions to life's problems, all on the down low because the church was not too kind to folks practicing pagan rituals and the like.
Backstreet abortionists.
It's a good punk band name, isn't it?
Am I illegal?
Oh no.
Am I criminal?
Ooh, there it is.
Right, sorry. We're not making light.
Like I said, we're pointing out the absurdity, aren't we?
There you go. Yes.
So, July 1633, a woman named Teogania di Adamo is put to death in Sicily for murdering her husband with poison. The year before, a woman named Francesca Lasarda had been executed for a similar crime. In 1881, a revisiting of documents and diaries related to the case determined that the two women had conspired to make and sell a poison potion known as aqua tufania, and that their crime had been considered so heinous that in various accounts it said that Diadama had been either hanged, drawn, and quartered, or, and this is a hell of a thing, closed and bound alive in a canvas sack and thrown from the roofs of the bishop's palace into the street in the presence of the populace.
Turbo defenestrated.
Yeah.
Defenestrated in a bag.
They really were creative with their tortures and deaths in those days.
That one kind of feels like they'd run out of ideas, though.
Maybe, I don't know. I'm thinking, they wanted to throw someone out of thing, but they figured out it was, the cleanup sucked, so they just put you in a bag instead.
Cool. Yes.
Yeah. So the whole game being up in Sicily, everyone associated with their operation fled, ending up in Rome, where they continued to make the poison. Among these associates was Giulia Tofana, who's thought to be the daughter of Teofania di Adamo, although it can't be known for sure. Regardless, she and a woman named Girolama Sparra got together a motley crew of accomplices to help them to get the word out about their potion, which was now being called aqua tofana.
What was in this potion, do we know?
Among the ingredients was...
Hey, we'll get there.
was arsenic, which was supplied by a priest named Father Girolamo of Sant'Agnese in Agone, whose brother was an apothecary. I love that it was a priest who was supplying the arsenic. It just...
Very nice.
Perfect.
Nice detail.
Right? The other ingredients, it just kind of depends on where you're reading it from. Arsenic definitely was one of the things, and the other ones are all like, depends on who's saying what it was.
Yeah. Red color 48.3B.
Yeah.
Caramel flavor.
Now, as the story goes, women started coming from all over the city to get their hands on some of this aqua tofana, which Giulia was selling out of an unassuming storefront, ostensibly selling cosmetics and soaps and little tinctures and such. A 17th century Bath and Body Works. And we're talking folks lined up around the block like it's Crumbles cookies. While they'd know to ask for aqua tofana, the mixture would come in a jar labeled Manna of St. Nicholas, which was a healing oil lots of people would have had in their homes and wouldn't have raised any suspicions. Which also, this oil, it said in one of the articles, was said to drip from the coffin of this guy or something like that, or drip from an icon of this man or whatever, which just grossed me out, honestly. I just don't like the idea of things dripping from something and me ingesting it.
No, I don't like that either.
I don't like it, but the Romans love their tradition and whatnot, so there you go. According to legends, some 600 men around the city dropped dead over the course of a few years, and no one could figure out what this affliction was that seemed to only be affecting them. Meanwhile, these women who had endured terrible arranged marriages were free to live out the rest of their lives with their own money and freedom, thanks to Giulia and her gang. That is, the story goes, until one woman got cold feet as she went to feed her husband poisoned soup and begged him not to eat it. Realizing she had tried to kill him, he beat her and made her tell him where she got the offending concoction. She gave up the Tofana operation, and Julia was caught red-handed making batches of the stuff. She, her daughter, and her accomplices were taken to jail, tortured, and then executed for their crimes, thus ending Roman women's access to the deadly drink and no doubt saving the lives of many Roman men.
Sure.
Now, according to Dash, records show that actually Julia Tofana died at home around 1651, neither imprisoned nor even apparently suspected of the crimes she'd been committing, which I think is kind of interesting. Like, this is one of the, like, if you read most things here, including, so I got this reference to this book that mentioned this from the sources of another article that I was reading, which in that article said that Tofana had been executed for this. And they referenced this book where the guy was like, she was not. She died at home. Nothing happened to her. And it's always fascinating, like, you know, a legend being like it comes to the point where everyone says this. And even when you're reading the book with the records, people are like, no, she definitely died. She, she totally died. It's important to the story people are telling about her that she was punished for this. You know, it's part of her sort of martyrdom to tell this story. But from what we can tell, she was not. She was never prosecuted for any of this. Upon her death, her partner, Sparta, took over the operation, and perhaps it was because she was moved in aristocratic circles rather than laying low, but the Roman authorities finally caught up with their shenanigans in 1658. Court records claim that Giovanna de Grandis, an associate of the crime ring, was entrapped by a police agent who said that she would pay for a poison that could kill her awful husband and end her unhappy marriage. With that, the Aqua Tofana racket was officially done. Spada and de Grandis were charged with 46 murders and hanged in front of a crowd along with one of their clients in 1659. 6 other accomplices and 40 lower-class customers were imprisoned for life. More well-to-do and well-connected ladies claim that they were shocked to find out that their cosmetics contained poison. And some of them were kept out of the trial by the Pope himself, seeking to avoid scandal. And now, some 350 plus years later, feminist movements in Italy have claimed both Beatrice Cenci and Giulia Tofana as symbols in their fight against the violent patriarchy that is still so prevalent in Italy. Beatrice as sort of a sad reminder that this has been going on forever, and the other is sort of a cheeky reminder of women's agency in all this, that you can only push them so far before they take their power back. And obviously, this is a tacit endorsement from Jack of all Graves, women of Italy. Go poison some men. Gosh darn it. Or drive a spike through their head. You know, whatever you gotta do.
I didn't enjoy any of that.
You're welcome.
No,
2025.
it's something that we do, something that this podcast does to me from time to time is remind me how, in many ways, even though we've come so far, we haven't come far at all. And yeah, thanks for that. That was lovely.
That's a one way of putting it. Like I said at the beginning, I think, you know, it's an interesting reminder, like you said. And like when I went on that New Orleans tour, I was like, this is so dark as to not be fun. Like, if you connect yourself and have empathy for people who this happened to, it's really hard for it to be fun. And that was how I felt on this. Like, again, our tour guide, Yash, was amazing. And if you're in Rome, I highly recommend going and getting a tour from him. But at the same time, it was like, on this, I was like, oof, this is sad.
Grueling.
This is not fun stuff, but it's also kind of like, you know, I think important to recognize that this stuff persists and that as the world moves further right, this battle gets more difficult, you know, that we have to be vigilant in making sure that this doesn't become everywhere, you know.
The lessons, though, tell us that vigilance solves nothing, even if we stay vigilant. I mean, vigilance in noticing something happening is all well and good.
Right.
But
you do have to be willing to use the spike.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, exactly that.
Let's get into happier things, shall we?
Yeah. All right. Okay. if you still have your 2024 calendar up, do me a favor. Don't be a fucking chump, right? Take it down, rip it up, spit on it,
Oh no.
fucking set it on fire, defenestrate it. Just get rid of that shit because it is January the 1st. It's 2025. It's a new day. Yes, it is. And
Mm.
I think it behooves us well here at this point on the award-winning, not so much in Italy, but globally beloved and celebrated podcast, Jack of All Graves, to maybe take a little look back over the last 12 and maybe take a look forward to the next 12, not just not just on a personal level, but globally, culturally, politically. And let's just fucking take a
Yeah.
moment as people. Let's just take a moment as human beings to use that fucking big cerebellum of ours
Mm.
and think on and think back and take a moment just to reflect
Love
backwards and
reflecting.
forwards. It's one of my favorite bits of this season, right? It's one of my favorite parts of this time of the year. It's something I love doing.
Yeah.
Uh, not to any real end. I mean, and the question is going to come to you soon because you're the resolutions girl,
I
not me.
am. Yeah.
I'm not the resolutions girl. Uh,
I'm gonna have to stop telling people that. You know, Mark, he's the
can you
resolutions
fucking
girl.
hell? No, I'm not because then they meet me and they're like, "What?"
This
Um,
guy? That's the resolutions
so
girl?
which is to say, welcome, friends. I know we've
Mm.
been away for a week, and
Two
you know,
weeks.
I get. It's been 2 weeks. Good
It's been
Lord!
2 weeks, yeah.
But I sincerely hope that you found some time over the past 2 weeks to, enjoy what you can, what there is left to enjoy.
Mm.
You know,
Here, here.
uh, I was in such a great mood before that, by the
Oh
way.
no. You
I
were
was
in a
in
good mood.
such a,
We'll get back into it.
I
I'm
was
sorry.
in
I didn't
such
mean
a
to.
fucking fantastic mood before you
Usually I didn't expect you to be in a great
Italianized
mood.
me.
That's the problem.
Um,
Listen, I had a great vacation.
good, well, good.
There's
In spite of,
no murders or anything that I was aware of. Aside from the fact that the way people drive there, I'm surprised that more people
mm,
aren't killed every single day. People
mm.
drive crazy in Rome. Oh, and our tour guide was saying that he was like, you have to be really careful here because everyone drinks and drives. It's like, oh my God. I was like, that explains a lot because we saw a guy rear end an army truck. There's like military all over the place in Rome. And we were,
Why?
that's a whole other cold open, I'm sure. But there's military everywhere, like standing outside of places with their guns and their camo and all that kind of stuff. Um,
Mm.
I just kind of get used to it after a while, but this we went across this street and then all of a sudden heard like and looked and a guy had rear-ended the soldiers. Like, ooh, bruh. I was like, yeah, okay, if everyone drives drunk, this makes a lot more sense about everything that we have seen here.
Did you see what became of him?
It seemed pretty chill. Everyone got out, and
Okay.
the thing is, like, it's a military truck, so like
Yeah,
his
yeah, yeah.
little like tiny Euro car sustained more damage than theirs did. It's like they're like, oh yeah, all right, well, peace. Though I do wonder, like, do they have insurance? Like, do the soldiers have insurance? How does that work? I don't know. Anyway,
I don't know. Would you like to know how my 2025 began?
I would love to. Tell me about
Right
it.
at about 8 o'clock this morning,
Mm-hmm.
January the 1st, I spasmed a muscle in my back,
Oh no.
standing up from the toilet.
No,
What do you think of that?
not the toilet.
It's good, isn't it?
Oh no.
First morning of the year, a beautiful reminder that I'm
Oh.
46 and that it's
Mm.
2025.
Time
Goosed my
moves
back.
inexorably forward.
Yes, it does. It does.
That's rough. Are you feeling okay now? Is your back better now?
Oh, listen, I feel fantastic.
Oh, good.
Horrific 45-minute stories notwithstanding. Um, other than that, I feel terrific. Thank you. And it's lovely to be here.
Oh, good. Listen, some days you get to be the downer, some days I get to be the
Hey,
downer. It is what
great
it
point.
is. But I learned to make pasta, Mark.
I
That was
saw,
great.
I saw, and
So
it
much.
seemed like for a newbie, you did a great job of it.
Yeah, it was fun. I thought it was going to be a lot worse. My my mother bought like pasta attachments for this KitchenAid mixer, which I already don't use. And like that thing weighs like 70 pounds, and I don't like cleaning all the parts. And every time I put something in it, I end up like splashing flour all over myself. I don't bake. I don't want anything to do with this. My mom buys pasta
They're
attachments.
like a
She's like,
Muppet.
I straight up, yes. And my mom buys pasta attachments. She's like, "Oh, I thought you might like to make fresh pasta." I was like, "No, I don't want to do that ever." Like that's I have tons of pasta in the pantry. I
Yeah.
do not need to do that. But after making it there by hand, no mixers or anything like that necessary, I might consider making more fresh pasta.
Yeah, I mean, is it a transferable skill? Could you do it now?
I think so. Yeah.
Good.
I think I would need some practice to not like screw it up or whatever, but like it was
Well,
much
then it was.
easier than I
Well, there you
thought.
go. I mean, that's one thing that the holiday, that's one positive impression that Italy has made on you.
Yeah. Oh, it made tons of positive impressions.
There
Everyone
you
was
go.
very friendly.
Mm,
Everywhere we went, we walked into places and people were really helpful and um, helped us pick out things everywhere we went. And like I said, great tours. Saw all those cool bones. It was pretty rad. I like the death monks a lot. Those are pretty cool. There was literally a room in this place that was called like the room of pelvises.
hey,
How often do you get to see a room of pelvises, Mark?
fair enough.
Riddle
Do
me
you have a picture of
this.
that? I would like to see
I
that.
do. Yes, I will for sure. I will post pictures of the bones. When we
Good.
were in the Uber on the way back from the airport, the driver had he just got remarried, and he and his new wife spent like a month backpacking through Italy, which I thought was crazy. This guy's like gotta be 50-ish. And I'm like, he was like, you guys got to do that. You got to backpack. And I was like, sir, I am too bougie for that. I need to be in a fine Airbnb with
Yep.
all the amenities. There's just simply no way I am backpacking anywhere. I want nothing on my back at any point. Um, but he said that they did the catacombs tour, but like I could tell he was like a little religious or whatever, and he was like really disturbed by the whole thing. It's like the bones did not like that. I felt like a dark sort of spirit coming over me and like all this stuff. And,
Well,
I
yeah, I mean,
prayed and I was in the catacombs and that feeling left. And, it's like,
I
oh,
mean,
I loved
death,
it.
death as art is one thing, but all those bodies had to come from somewhere. What were those people?
They're the monks. They're
I
their
see.
own
Okay.
people. Yeah, it's not they didn't murder anyone. They're not like,
Hmm.
anything like that. It was their own guys.
Good.
They would do that with. So yeah, there's like, it's interesting to see that difference in like interpretation of people sort of seeing death as like such a dark entity that it makes them feel like
Mm.
they're being spiritually attacked, to be amongst that kind of thing, as opposed to like me being in there like, wow, this is neat. How cool is this? there was It was great though, obviously, like I said, everyone's very Catholic and everything, and we went to these catacombs that were like very sacred. You weren't allowed to take pictures or anything like that. Like, you're just supposed to be very reverent in these catacombs. There'd been pilgrimages there for like 1,000 years and stuff like that. And this one like American like 18-year-old was like at the end of it, the guy was like, "Do you have any questions for me?" And he's like, "Are there any ghost stories?" And the guy was just like, "No, there are no ghosts here. Like it's supposed to be consecrated, full of
You
like
were thinking
saints and
it. Don't tell
shit."
me you weren't thinking it.
No, I understood that obviously, again, this is supposed to be a place where like, yeah, like Christians died. There shouldn't be any ghosts,
Yeah, good
right?
point.
Like ghosts are supposed to be restless spirits. Everyone who's buried in this place should be with God. So yeah, they're not gonna have ghost stories. You're still smelling your shirt right now.
I am, and I until I get the chance to change it, I will do. Darling listeners, we had a delicious kind of beef brisket for lunch. It was beautiful, and I tried to shred it and got a load of juice over myself. And I didn't change my top immediately. So as a result, I'm sat here podcasting right now in the middle of the day, and I stink of beef juices, and I've come to really like it. Um,
You're like
oh,
offering, like you're like, I wish I could like send this smell to you. And
Honestly,
I don't think secondhand beef is a smell anyone is looking for.
if you could smell me right now, you would love it. You would. I could actually dab it behind my ears.
Oh
I'm going
my
to the
God.
movies in a bit to see Nosferatu, and I
Oh
think I
boy.
will change my top before then because
Yeah, you probably should.
it's the last thing you're going to want sat next to somebody, isn't it?
It's when you're watching like a like disgusting vampire movie and just
Mm.
smelling beef the whole time.
Right. Just to talk about that a little bit, is it
Mm.
disgusting then? Because you saw it yesterday, yes?
There's some parts of it that like, well, I plugged my ears a few times during this movie. Let's
Neck
just
core? Is it necky?
it's no, because he goes for the heart, not the neck. So it's a
Okay.
lot of just like straight to the heart sucking sounds in it. It's interesting. So we'll jump in and just talk about what we watched since we're gonna move through it. We're gonna get into our looking back over the year, looking forward. We're gonna look at our highlights of things that we watched and read and all that
Oh,
stuff.
my
But
spine.
I went and saw Nosferatu yesterday, and I hated it, which was such a bummer. I was so looking forward to this movie, um, and it just
But
didn't
what I
work
mean, what
on
you've
any
said to
level
me
for
is
me.
you hated it and it's all vibes. And I
Yeah.
think all this has done is made me even more enthusiastic about seeing it than I was in the first place. I think we have another skin in a ring on our hands, don't we? What it feels
Yeah,
like.
I don't know. Here's my thing with Nosferatu. I think it's hugely miscast, for one, which is a problem in and of itself. You do not buy anyone in this movie. It feels like cosplay. Especially it's got Aaron Taylor Johnson, who is, bless him, one of the worst
Oh,
actors on the planet. And
he is. Yeah, he is.
there's a
Yeah.
point in it. This is not a spoiler at all, but there's a point in this movie where he opens the door and there's like people there, and I can't remember exactly what he says, but in like this exaggerated accent, he says something, "What's the meaning of this?" And like I could not help, I like straight just burst out laughing. But mostly my issue with it is it's boring, but like not in the same way that Skinamarink is. I don't know. It's weird, and I cannot predict what you're going to make of this movie. It's baffling to me, and I love Robert Eggers even when things don't work for me. Like I didn't really like enjoy The Northman,
Yes.
just because it's like not my kind of movie, right? But like watching, I'm like, it's well made. Whether I enjoy this or not, I'm like, it's a really well done movie, well cast, well, all this stuff. And this is one of those like, it's the story's bad, the acting's bad, you can't see shit, you can't hear shit. The dialogue is mumbled. It is
Sounds so
so
good.
hard.
Oh, did you say this mumbling?
It's just, yeah, everyone's speaking in unintelligible accents. The Count Orlok sounds like Nandor with COPD. Uh it's just and for some reason has a mustache, and there's nothing scary about a vampire with a
Right, stop.
mustache.
Stop at once. I will hear no more until I see it. Thank
Yeah.
you.
I'm very curious to see I just cannot, I can't predict what you will think of
Good.
this movie.
Good.
Um But one thing that I really have been looking forward to talking about, and I want to get to it right away, is that you and the rest of the Lewis family watched Twister.
Oh, we did, and it came out of nowhere, right? It wasn't planned. It was
Oh
on
my gosh.
TV. So Laura's like, "Oh, should we see Twister?" I was like, "Yes, yes, yes, here we go." So we didn't watch the TV version. I got it downloaded. Fucking hell, you were right, and I have
Yeah,
no qualms about saying it. I'm
you know,
delighted
it's
to
not
say
like
it.
you were,
No,
I
no,
don't
no,
think you've been
exactly.
a
There's no
naysayer about
contention there.
this.
No,
Yeah.
no, certainly not.
You
But
just
it
simply
was
had not seen it.
it was. I let me try and articulate this. I was kind of I suspected that you loved it so much because you kind of made it one of your autistic pet things. You
Sure.
know what I
Okay.
mean?
Yeah, no, that's
I
fair.
thought
Yeah.
that you'd kind of your love for it was kind of
Yeah, that blend of like nostalgia and hyperfixation.
exactly, exactly,
Right.
exactly, exactly. But no, it's just fucking stunning. It was a five. It was a. I think I gave it a five. In fact,
I think you
um,
might have done 4.5, but like I
do you know what
was,
it is?
hmm,
It's relentless, this film. It
yeah,
is tornado, 15-minute break for some food and a chat.
right.
Tornado, break, tornado. It's just bang, 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 bang. Just ever more absurd and just huge action sequences. The fucking pace on this film and chemistry with all the cast. What a cast,
Mm-hmm.
by the way. I didn't even
Yes.
realize Alan Ruck popping up was just a treat.
Yes. Rabbit is
I
good,
didn't.
rabbit is wise.
Oh, no, and
Philip Seymour Hoffman. I mean, you've got
I'm not going to bother watching Twisters. I don't want to see it.
yeah,
I've got
don't.
no interest in seeing it. Um,
You've seen the perfect film. You do not need to
yeah,
see Twisters and see what they
yeah.
did to it.
So that's a lovely little period at the end of that chapter of the Joag journey.
I'm
Having
so
seen
happy
Twister
about that.
and seeing it land so well with the boys as well. And
Mm.
Laura's the only one of the four of us who'd seen it, and she has no memory of it. So it just unfolded before us, and we were
I
all
love that.
bundled up on the sofa. It was horrific weather outside, and it was
Oh,
perfect.
perfect.
What a
To see
movie!
Twister for the first time again. Oh
Mm,
man, I can only
yeah,
imagine. But I love that. That made me so happy to see that hit so well and everything.
yeah.
Because yeah, it's genuinely, just a movie that, like I said, I watch multiple times a year. Probably the movie that
Mm,
I watch the most. Like even I probably watch Twister more than I watch Jaws. Like,
mm.
I love this movie dearly, and it really is, it's magic. Like it's got all, it's Jan de
Yeah, which
Bonting.
again I didn't know until the credits rolled.
Right? It's like,
And
you've got he's the cinematographer of Die Hard. He did Speed and he did this. Like, come on.
James Cameron's fingerprints are all over it as well, with
Yeah, for sure.
Kathleen Kennedy involved, and
hmm
you know, Bill Paxton in there.
Yes.
It has that kind of essence to it as well.
hmm
I loved it. Just fucking so good. It was one of the filmic highlights of last year for me. No question. It was superb.
Beautiful. Love that.
Yes, well
What
done you.
else? After all this time. Wonderful.
Yes.
What else did you get to watching?
Well, look, us having been away for a couple of weeks, uh, I'm just going to punctuate with the highs and the lows, right?
hmm
Let's let's not bother wading through the kind of middle ground stuff.
Yeah, that's a good plan. I like it.
Yeah. I will talk about fucking hell, a movie that the internet reckons people are talking about in the same breath as Die Hard, right?
Okay.
A new Christmas
Oh.
action classic. Um,
hmm
Carry On, right?
Yeah, this is an interesting. I've been watching. I have not seen it, and I'd never even heard of it. And then all of a sudden, it popped up that like everyone I know on Letterboxd is watching it, and the reviews are all over the place on this.
uh, fuck me, it's the stupidest film. It is the stupidest film, and I know it's by the Taken guy. Is that right?
Oh, is it?
What's his fucking name?
I don't even know, honestly.
Jumcolin Serra. Uh,
Oh, yeah. I know people like that guy a lot, but I don't know of anything, I guess, other than Taken. That I mean, I may have seen other stuff by him, but
it feels trite to say that it's a Netflixy kind of film,
right,
right?
yeah.
But it really is. It is just an act of spoon feeding you sludge. Everything is signposted in fucking huge red neon lights. Every
Right.
kind of plot development is shown to you and given to you in a nice little kind of easy way. Um, you know my problem with how do you convey texting on a phone on screen, Corey? How should you do it? How should you do it?
We disagree on this, so
You should simply
no.
show the phone, simply show the
Yeah,
message.
no, I can't read
Uh,
that shit.
on numerous occasions, the phone graphic takes up like half of the screen, and it's in neon, and it's a big stylistic choice to fucking just blow this up in a horrible kind of gauche, just offensive, stupid way. Um, you talk about shit performers, like Aaron Taylor Johnson, Taron Egerton's fucking awful.
I
He
think I
is.
normally like him. I like Rocket Man and I like Kingsman, so I don't really have a
Again,
complaint about him.
stupid. It's stupid, and his character is stupid, and the situation he finds himself in is stupid. Uh,
Okay.
Jason Bateman's the only halfway good thing about it, and even
Oh,
he's
I didn't even know he was in
stupid.
that.
Yeah, he's a baddie. He's a baddie. It's Jason Bateman doing a bad
Oh,
guy.
interesting.
Um,
Okay.
oh, it's terrible, terrible. And having watched Die Hard as well this year,
Mm. Yeah, I did
it's
too.
if you watch Carry On and you believe that it's of a caliber of Die Hard, I don't know what to fucking say to you. I don't know what to say to you. Die Hard is a real movie, a real piece of work, whereas this is, like I think I said on Letterboxd, if you told me that that screenplay had been delivered in one prompt by GPT, I would believe you hands down. I wouldn't even question you for a second.
Yeah,
It reads, oh God, it's so fucking, it's just tepid and lukewarm, and it reads like a fucking picture book. It's horrible.
yeah, I feel like, I'm not necessarily against those kinds of movies just as like you talk about it being like a Netflix movie.
Yeah.
Like anything made for Netflix is made to be half watched, right? It's made for you to be on your phone while you're watching it. And
Yeah.
so it's like, fine, there's a place for that. You don't put it in like the same branch with stuff that is like cinema, but like, like it's not gonna be Die Hard. But fine, make like a dumbass movie that I can sit there and Facebook or whatever while I watch it, fine.
It is it horrific and horrible and pretentious to say that it worries me about what a younger movie watcher might fucking then go on to feel that that is what a movie ought to be. If
Well,
you're watching something like
that's
that,
like how I
does
felt
that become the
about.
standard by which you then build your what you think a film ought to be?
I mean, I think that like there's always been shit movies, right? Like Van Damme was making like dumbass shit back in the day
Great
too,
point.
But I do get what you mean because it's like what I was saying about Wicked, where I was like, people are like acknowledging that it looks bad and all this kind of stuff, but are calling it a masterpiece. And it's like, okay, where are our like, is art dead? Do we not make like nobody is going to fund making art anymore because everyone is like, it's a masterpiece when you make shit.
Because
Like,
what doesn't probably help Carry On at all is that I went out of my way to watch some really good fucking films this year. The Christmas period just gone, right? And the night after I watched Carry On, I watched LA Confidential, right? And
oh
a
yeah, I
first
mean,
watch
come
for me.
on. Oh, you'd never seen it
And
before.
never seen it before. And I
Oh,
don't even know.
wow.
Again, I was driven. I think I'd
Yeah.
seen somebody
If I
mention
had
it
known you
online, and
hadn't seen that, I would have
oh,
recommended it ages ago. That's a pretty
and
near perfect movie.
and that is the real thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the real fucking work.
Yep.
Um, uh, and and again, Twister the night
Hmm.
after that, Full Metal Jacket.
Right.
I've been fucking just squeezing in really fucking
Yeah.
substantial films
Well,
this
and you're doing
holiday
exactly what I've been
season.
doing all year, which is going back 20, 30
Yeah,
years instead of
yeah,
watching what's coming out now. And I hope it's like growing pains and that this is just not like it's a phase. Like, you know how music in the 2010s was just fucking awful? And like it's kind of righted
but yeah,
itself since then, but
yeah,
like
maybe.
from like 2010 to like 2016, 2017, just music was fucking terrible.
Mm,
I hope that's where we are with movies, that it's just like we're in like a weird zone where like everyone is aiming at like TikTok generation or whatever, and like
mm.
hopefully it'll right
It'll come
itself.
back around. Yeah.
Yeah, and like people will start giving money because like that's really the issue is like fine, make as much shit as you want, but the problem is that like no good
Yes.
like mid-budget anything is being made because no one's gonna fund an artist when you can put out Carry On.
Yeah, which I
And
agree with up to a point. I mean, as I've said so often, and as hopefully I will be able to continue to say, there's still wonderful things being done in
it's
our
true.
genre. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? In our
Yeah,
corner of
absolutely. It
cinema.
is it is one of the few places that we still get mid-budget
Yes.
movies instead
Yes.
of, blockbusters and low budget for that matter,
Mm,
that you can still get horror, and that's why they keep making them and putting them in theaters because they are the cheaper thing to make that we all go see.
yes.
Um and it's weird that that lesson doesn't play out, like that they don't think of that for other stuff. Like,
Isn't it?
what if we did that in other genres? Like it's 1996.
Mm.
Do mid-budget in other genres. Imagine.
But look, nothing else really to write home about over the last couple of weeks that I haven't opined on till I'm blue in the face time and time again. I One of my favoriteest bits of Christmas every year is a few days before Christmas when I get to sit down on my own, cross-legged on the floor with my roll of wrapping paper and my sellotape
Mm,
and just put a banger on. And it was RoboCop this year, and
nice.
uh, find me
Yeah.
something. Find me something wrong with that movie. Find me anything wrong with that film, and you can't. You can't find it. You can't find anything wrong with it. Like as a lover and as a you know, like with my kids, I'll look for for imperfections just to
For
think
sure.
surely they aren't as perfect as I think they are. And I kind of looked at RoboCop through that lens this time, and there's nothing to complain about in that film. Nothing.
Love it.
Even the bits, even the mistakes, like Dick Jones' stupid long arms, fit.
It
They
is,
work
yeah,
in the
it's pretty
context of that
perfect.
film. So find me something wrong. You cannot.
I love that.
Mm. Yes, that's
Like I
what
said, I
about you?
was on vacation, so I didn't watch like a
Yes,
ton
you
of
were. You were. You
things.
were.
Standard Christmas movies, all that. New Christmas movie that I recommend, That Christmas, really delightful animated picture that we
Yeah,
watched because we had Netflix in Rome. Big recommend that one.
we put it on. I'm afraid to say I fell asleep
Well, that's not surprising.
because that's a thing I do.
Yeah, it is a thing you
Uh,
do.
Yes, I will
uh,
talk about Werewolves super quick, which I watched the other night.
but
Again, stupid as fuck. But
like in a
thank
good way,
God.
right?
But in a better way than Carry On. Stupid as fuck, but not in a way that makes me angry. Finally, finally, somebody made the purge, but with werewolves. That's all I'll say.
We've all been asking for it.
You know what I mean? You've got to give. Finally, someone's giving the people what they want. Frank
Yeah,
Grillo is
love him.
a globally renowned molecular biologist, which I think
Of
tells you
course.
everything you need to know about
He's so
the
typecast, that
arena.
Frank Grillo.
Oh man, great to see him though. Always good to see
Yes.
Frank. It's good to see Frank Grillo all the time. He'd be a good Punisher,
Oh, for sure.
wouldn't he?
Yeah,
But not. But yeah, he's equally at home playing the Punisher as he is playing a globally renowned molecular biologist. I
I
don't
love
think there's
that.
anything Frank Grillo couldn't do, and I wish
Here,
nothing but
here.
the best of him for him in 2025.
Here, here. I finally got around to watching the Speak No Evil remake, and
Okay.
like everyone said, way better than the original.
Oh, I was bracing. That face is me bracing myself. Going, I hate it.
No, I
But no,
enjoyed it.
it is, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah, it's way better. We watched Resolution together. You hadn't watched we did watch Synchronic years ago, but we hadn't watched you apparently hadn't watched any of the other movies in that world.
No. Did we watch
Uh
Resolution or did we watch The Endless?
oh, we watched The Endless. Sorry. I watched both. So we watched The
Ah,
Endless, and then afterwards that made me want to go back and watch Resolution, which is reverse order, but I actually feel like works well for these movies. Resolution is from 2012 and it's much less polished as a movie, but uh, if you've seen The Endless we did talk about last time, which was like a cult movie, basically. Like Mark, you said you didn't want to give anything away, and I think that's correct.
no.
But Resolution, that comes like there's scenes in The Endless that come from Resolution, essentially. So I watched that and I just, I love those movies and I love those guys and I think it's worthwhile if you've never seen these movies. You can skip Synchronic. I think it's, fine, but nothing great. But The Endless and Resolution are such a good time taken together. And I think watching the later one first actually works in its favor so that you kind of forgive some of the like low budget, very first movie-ish feeling of
Yeah.
Resolution. Um,
I
also,
certainly
oh,
enjoyed The Endless enough to give them more of my life, to give them
right,
more of my
yeah,
time.
yeah, I like them a lot.
Mm.
Um, while in Rome, also watched Gladiator for the first
All
time.
right. Okay, good.
Finally, we were going to the Colosseum the next day, and I was like, you know what? Let's do it. Let's watch Gladiator. It's been 24 years. Let's do it. Let's watch this movie.
I think
Um,
you watch it on your laptop in a hotel room, yes? Just as Ridley
yes,
would have wanted.
just as it was meant to be seen,
Yeah.
obviously. And that is like one of the most baffling films I have ever seen in my life. It is
Hmm.
bizarre. Someone said, I was reading like other like friends reviews and someone said that their partner was like, it feels like a different person directed this every 10 minutes. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right. Like it is
Love that.
all over the place. It's one of those, I'm not picky about like plot holes or like things like that. Like a lot of times I can't even like follow a story, whatever. It's like if you got me entertained, I'm in, right?
Yep.
Um, but this movie was like so crazy that at several times I was just like, surely not. Come on. That's
Yeah.
that's not what
It's
that's not what you're gonna do here, is it?
it's one I've only seen like at the time it came out, so a long, long, long time ago. But
Yeah.
I just don't care. I'm simply not interested in watching the second one, and I will
Yeah.
eventually because it'll get to the point where I can't handle the people fucking telling me I should anymore. So I'll see it eventually.
I
But
literally
man,
only
I'm
want to
not.
see the second one because I hear Denzel's having a good time.
Oh, good.
Like
Okay.
if I managed to go 24 years without seeing the first one despite peer pressure, I think I could go without seeing the second. But
Yes.
Denzel in Gladiator seems very fun to me. And I think the thing is that people who saw Gladiator 2 and were like, it's not as good as the first one or whatever, like have a memory of Gladiator that I don't think is accurate.
Interesting.
Like
Yes.
I think it's like one of those ones that I can see in 2000
Mm.
why people would have been into this, and then your nostalgia for it makes it stand the test of time, right?
I Russell Crowe does fight a tiger, doesn't he? I haven't made that up.
Yes, you were correct. That does happen.
Good.
There is a tiger fight scene in it. But yeah, it is a baffling movie on pretty much every level. It also only
Mm.
has one woman in the entire movie, which is so wild. 2000,
No need.
baby. You didn't have to have
Yeah.
women in your shit. Uh,
Not for them.
no one
Not
can
for
make
them.
me put women in stuff. Yeah, so there was that. I watched Red One. It's as bad as everyone says that it is. um, yeah, and like I
Well,
said, I saw
everyone except The
Nosferatu,
Rock.
except The
The
Rock.
Rock seemed pretty pleased with it.
Yeah, what happened?
I don't think
What
he's got a good
happened?
2025 coming up.
No, I don't think so.
I think the
No,
bubble might have finally burst on him.
big time. It's pretty wild to see that. The other weird thing about Red One that other people have pointed out is it's just bizarre that it's like Chris Evans is playing a Ryan Reynolds role. And it feels very
Hmm.
weird the whole time. Like the whole time you're saying like, this should really be Ryan Reynolds. It's kind of odd. But yeah, so that was pretty much what I got
Uh,
up to.
but I genuinely just want to throw out to our listeners. I really hope you had a good couple of weeks. You know,
You're here.
it's I kind of blow hot and cold with Christmas as a concept, right? The fact that it's a manufactured couple of weeks that you everything stops except commerce, everything stops except
Hmm.
retail.
Right.
Um, I kind of let that get in the way, but it can serve a purpose. It can give you space, you know, it can give
Hmm.
you space to just look and let things in and decide what's important. And I hope you found some of that. I really do.
You know what's interesting? Just to that point, we were in New Zealand for Christmas like 6 years ago, somewhere in that
Mm,
vicinity, and New Zealand straight up shuts down at
okay.
Christmas time. So like the businesses, like the retail businesses, people go on vacation, you go in the stores all have signs and we'll be back January 10th or whatever, you know. And I thought that was really cool that it was like no,
Mm,
everybody gets this time off. It's not, it's not just like, yeah, if you work a full-time job or whatever, you get some time and then everyone else serves you. It's like sure there's restaurants open and stuff, but a lot weren't. It's just like, yeah, no, this is family time, this is vacation time. Everybody
beautiful.
goes away and there's an expectation of that. Like,
Beautiful.
good job, Kiwis.
Yes, yes, as in many other things. Kiwis are cool. Cool lads.
It's true. So let's talk about some of that reflection, some of that looking forward, all of that stuff, looking back over your year.
Mm.
What stands out to you about your 2024, Mark Lewis?
Well, certainly feel as though I left it in a very different place than I joined it.
Yeah, for sure.
I think you'd probably agree that, well, put it like this, fucking hell. And I don't even know if I've spoken about this since we were on last, right? The very notion, right? The very notion that Mark Alwyn Lewis would sail through his birthday and two works Christmas fucking parties and Christmas itself and New Year's Eve uh, just utterly, completely sober
Yeah,
is fucking bonkers to me. Is wild,
right. Unheard of.
uh, completely insane, and it's revealed as a lot. I have found. I have really, really, really realized that socially I am one awkward fucker, man. Um, if I'm in a social situation dry as I have been lately,
Mm-hmm.
uh, particularly with people that I'm not necessarily 100% comfortable with. Fucking man, I can't carry a conversation on. I can't string words together. I don't know what to do with my face when people are talking at me.
Mm.
I just cannot wait to leave. But but at the same time, I think it's been really fun. It's been really fun learning that and sitting with
Right.
that. Um,
Yeah, definitely.
which is why, just like in years previous, no resolutions here, none, no resolutions at all, because a resolution to me is a wish to change something, to swerve something, to add or remove something from your life, and I feel as though I just want to fucking keep charting this course. It's a good course to be on,
Yeah, that's
and
good.
one that I'm gonna continue with. So good habits, good choices,
Yeah.
pursuit of fucking good physical conditioning. I mean, Boxing Day I ran 14K um on Boxing
That's
Day.
so different from yeah, the boxing days you've had the past, several years
Yeah,
that I've known you. That would
yeah,
have been, yeah,
yeah.
just absolutely
Un
no go. You were already like
Unreal.
wasted by 10 a.m. some other
Yeah, yeah,
times.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. Merrily so.
Yes.
Uh so yes, no big changes to me for me. I personally, I mean, have
Yeah,
there been low points during the year? Fucking right.
sure. Yeah.
Um, uh, yeah, yeah. There were low points during the year. My favorite low point, right? The low point that I just look back on and cackle with now was graying out in the middle of a gig and smashing my face on the
Yeah.
floor and having to be kind of ambulanced out as fucking blood poured down my face. That was a fucking oof, that was rough. And
Yeah, that's
I
pretty.
heard that story for the first time from the guy that I went to see the band with, and he told me about it. He thought I died, man. He thought I was dead because it wasn't just that I grayed out and smashed my face once. I came to a few times and just went back out and fell and just
It's
continued
like this
hitting
one
my.
for sure. He's gone.
He thought I died.
Jesus
So
Christ.
yeah, so that was awful. But on the other hand, uh, it's a gift to be
Mm,
self-aware, isn't it? It's a gift
it
to
is,
know
yes.
that you control things and that you can control your own path and control your own way out
Absolutely.
of choppy waters.
Mm.
Uh, so having done that and having been in the position of being able to do that is a privilege.
I love that. Yeah. And I like the
Yeah.
idea that, of just not having a resolution because just keep you're doing right.
Mm.
You're doing things well. Your end of this is going swimmingly. Things happen to you,
Yes.
stuff occurs that's beyond your ability to control, but the way that you have been living is a place that you're satisfied with and you
Yep.
just want to keep doing that.
Yes.
I love that.
Yep. Yes. And yes, just practicing just those fucking fundamental pillars of who I consider myself to be, my
Mm.
non-negotiables. You know what I mean? Honesty with myself,
Yes.
self-awareness, and authenticity. Just carry on being the fucking most pure version of myself I can be.
I absolutely love it. Now, of course, I'm not,
You,
it's not that yeah, I think I've been doing well and all that kind of stuff, but I love a goal.
I know you do. I know.
Looking back over the years, the things that I said I was going to do, I failed at my listening to music goal. I said that I was going to listen to one new album every week. I ended up, this was hilarious to me when my like year-end wrap up came up. I had listened to like 1,400 minutes less than last
Oh,
year.
great. Really
It's
nice.
like, oh man, I failed that hard.
Mm.
Um, so, I think that was unrealistic the way that I approached it. But I still do want to listen to more music. So I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. So now I'm doing Music Mondays. I walk my dog every single day, right?
Mm.
And every day I listen to podcasts while I
Yep.
walk the dog. That's like an
I know.
hour each day that I'm listening to a podcast. And so I decided on Mondays on my walks, I will listen to music. And that way I will finally get a little music into my life, you know, because I do
Yeah.
love music and everything. And I love when I discover something new and all that. It's like the reason I make this goal is not to just be like, you should listen to music. It's because I really like it. I just don't
Of
make
course.
time for it. And so I need to, you know, I need to schedule when I do that. So Mondays this year are going to be my music day. And hopefully
Good.
I'll make some good music discoveries that way. Um, Finished out sober 2024
The entire year, yeah, the
entire
whole
year. I mean, I
beautiful.
had sips here and there, but you know, other than that, nada. Great, loved it. Like you, I think, you know, it just ended up being one of those things like, yeah, going to a social event or things like that, you know, I'm more likely to just leave. Right? Like
Yes.
without anything to kind of ease the social anxiety or things like that. I'm not going to stick around in a situation. I yeah, have trouble making conversations with people, um, making eye contact, all of that kind of stuff. Um,
I mean, I
but
what I find myself doing, because I hear you, right? Because fuck, I simply can't work out how people do it. How do people
right, like people enjoy
interact in a
it. Like they
relaxed kind of
actively enjoy it.
all I fucking do is just fall back on that old cheat code, ask someone a question based on what they just said to you.
Right.
That's
The
all
only
I
problem
do.
is a lot of times I zone out what they said to me and then I don't have anything from there and I'm just like looking at them like, oh no, like I'm failing a pop quiz. This has gone poorly. What do I
Uh,
do now? It's
yeah.
the
I relate so much.
I can't I have trouble. I
Mm,
focus on trying to look at someone, right? Like look them in their eye. Don't look
yeah,
away from them. And then
yeah.
I'm thinking so hard about that that I stop listening to whatever they're saying. And I
Oh,
realize I've just been focusing on seeming like I'm listening and I wasn't
and
actually doing it.
when I say I don't know what to do with my face when people are talking to me, I mean it, man. I kind of I've just become
Yeah.
intensely aware of what my face is
Do I
doing.
look empathetic? Do I smile? Do I like what
Exactly. Does my mouth look weird? Um, and yeah, it's very tough. Very
it
tough.
is it's difficult. Yeah. So that is definitely one of the things over the course of this year is that like just not sticking around for things or like being very honest about
Yeah.
being like I will just tell people like I'm not great in social situations or things like that, which I wouldn't have done before. I try to fake it until I make it. Um and that, you know, that's worked out for me at this point. Like, you know, Amina, the town councilor, keeps on hiring me for things. I'm like, listen, I'm not great at
Nice.
like the people part, but I will make nice videos for you and stuff like that. And she's like, great. She doesn't try to introduce me
Good.
to anyone or anything like
Hmm.
that. She's like, cool, do your thing.
Very
Um,
nice.
yeah, so uh I think,
Do
you
you have any
know,
of those coming up, by the way?
no, not in the near future. The council is falling apart at the moment. They've got other things that
Well,
they're dealing with. Ooh, it's crazy shit in this town. Lots of good drama. Maybe I'll talk about it at a later date. But police reports were filed against one council member by two of the others last week. That's where we are.
oh my God.
Yeah,
Is he?
he's
I guess it's a he. Is he somebody
yes.
who's shown up in one of your videos? Is he somebody I might have seen?
No. This
Okay,
is
okay.
it's a guy from the other slate who shouldn't have won, but everybody votes for the rich people. So what are you gonna do?
Oh,
But otherwise I also made the goal to walk a mile every day, at least a mile every day, no matter the
yeah.
weather. I didn't necessarily do that. Some days I was just too tired or sore or it was cold or whatever. But on average, I walked far more than that every day. And I
Superb.
started basically not driving at all except to the grocery store. So I probably filled up my car like 6 times the whole year with
Oh, good.
gas. It's like just, you know, never use the thing. I walk for all errands everywhere, and that has been great.
Love that for you. Not easy knowing your neighborhood as intimately as I do.
The real problem is like there's a lot of uphill in
Yeah.
the area. And that's when things, my poor sister is not used to it. And we walked to the movie theater yesterday and she had like shin splints like crazy by the time we got there. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I do this every day, so I don't think anything of it. Um, but my two like big goals for next year
This year.
is, or this year, I mean, right, it is now 20 and 25, is to try to go as close to zero waste as
Mm.
possible. So I have, already started replacing things that I'm running out of, like deodorant and things like that, with stuff that's compostable and stuff that comes in refill bags you can send back and then they send back to you and stuff like that. And just, yeah, trying to not have packaging on things as much as possible and
Yeah, yeah.
minimize the amount of trash and waste that I produce. And as such, also just generally consumption. Like if you are trying to reduce waste, that limits the amount that you can consume in general.
Yes.
So I'm very excited about this goal, really
Yes.
enjoying the
It
process.
has been kind of on my mind that I might start to steer myself away from because
You
ooh,
love consumption.
I just new things coming through my door,
Yeah.
or just ooh, that's the best. Ooh, is that my new thing?
I
So
feel like
yeah,
that's like for those of us who didn't grow up with like a lot of stuff, that's
yeah,
like, and then we
yeah,
kind of
maybe,
move
maybe,
up a
maybe.
social class or whatever and have like a little economic room. There's
Mm,
like, yeah, it's like very exciting to like get new stuff. It's like, oh my God, I can do this. Like if I want something, I can buy it and I can have it.
yes,
And so that kind of overrides the do I need it
yes,
kind of
yes.
element of this whole thing. And I'm trying to avoid that. I'm also trying to get like my family to divest entirely from Amazon. Um, and they're at least Keo is mostly on board with that. Be a
Do
little
you know?
harder with my mother.
I don't think I bought a single thing from Bezos this
Nice.
year.
Oh, that's
Uh,
amazing.
all my books came from bookshops.
Love that.
All my clothes came from,
Yeah, like
a
actual
building. Yeah,
shops.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
That's the kind of thing that I think in America most people just buy everything on Amazon. It's
Mm.
you don't go to places to get things. And so, making a conscious effort to actually do that is, I'm like, when your Prime subscription comes up, don't renew it. We're done. We're out. So I'm stoked on that too. And then the
That
last
would,
goal,
do
oh,
you know,
go ahead.
you've got kind of got me thinking about that. That is a big intentional step because I don't watch Prime Video ever at all. It's
Right. Like,
rubbish.
seriously, there's no reason to use Prime Video.
Mm.
Especially now that they've added commercials to it, even if you
Well,
pay for
exactly.
it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
please, no thanks. You can't watch things together with your friends anymore because there's ads. Like, fuck it off. Listen, if you're listening,
Mm.
cancel that shit. Steal it. I don't give a shit. Just don't
Mm.
pay Bezos in 2025. I think that that's the divest from billionaires as much as you can in 2025, I think is a good goal.
Yes.
Uh,
Or even, 3D print yourself a gun,
well, I mean, you didn't hear it here.
shoot one.
Divest from one, shoot one, whatever is most convenient. The other goal that I have, of course, that I've mentioned is my, like, using this term loosely, but best shape of my life at 40. I
Okay.
wanna I wanna hit 40 and be like, tickets to the gun show,
Yes.
all my numbers at the doctor looking like, whoa, amazing, and all of that stuff.
What numbers in particular? What do you mean?
Like your, your
Blood
your blood
pressure and
work. Yeah,
yeah,
all
yeah,
your
yeah.
stuff,
Okay.
look at it and be like, that's some good ass blood work. That kind of thing. Yeah, I just want to like, yeah, be fit and feel like I am age proofing myself,
Mm.
because obviously my joints don't like me and all that kind of stuff. And making it so that as I go into the latter half of my life, I am feeling like fit and ready for it and as prepped as I can be.
In the 4.5 and some years that we've been doing this, how how is that kind of, your connective tissues? Has there been any noticeable kind of decline in that?
Um, I think it's a little, I mean, it's varies day by day. So like
Yes.
some days it's like I walk a few steps and my hip dislocates or whatever, Like sometimes it's like that or my knees hurt. I mean, my knees kind of always have like a low level pain, especially my right knee. But I do think that with all the walking and all that kind of stuff and building up the muscles and all that, um,
Good.
that in some ways it's better that I'm putting less pressure on
Yeah.
them and building up the other things. So, I can say I don't think it's worse over
Okay.
time, which
Good.
is good. And so we just want to keep that going as long as possible.
Awesome. I mean, I have wondered if it might be time to start like, taking collagen or something like that.
Right. I don't know. Oh, there was something. Is it chondroitin? I think. Someone just posted, and I took a screenshot of it. They were like, there's so many like supplements and shit that people tell you to take, and like 99% of them are like absolute bullshit. They don't do anything for
Exactly.
you. Your
Yeah.
body does it itself, all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And someone was like, turns out the one thing that actually does help I think was chondroitin, and they were like, my joints feel like magic now.
Say that again.
Chondroitin? I don't know how you spell it, but I
Now
see it
say
on.
it how
Oh my
it's
god,
spelled.
chondroitin. uh,
Listen, I'm happy to throw this one out to the team. I'm happy to throw this one out to our listeners. If you have something that you take that you feel is actually having a material benefit, an actual measurable benefit on your health in the
mm,
face of the advancing years, I'd love to hear about it because I'm not really looking forward to another 30 odd years of throwing my back out every time I go for a poo, you know?
that's right. What can we do to avoid that? That seems like a really good baseline.
Yes. Oh, have you sent me
I sent you what it is, chondroitin.
chondroitin?
I see it in commercials during Jeopardy all the time, so it's for the olds like us.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Uh,
Excellent.
So, Mark, with that all said, shall we just look back and give some of our highlights of the year, run through what some of our favorite things were over the course of 2024?
I would love to. I would actually love to. I mean, on a personal note, my trip to New York was up there. Um, not just of 2024, but like ever. It was a real fucking highlight of my life.
I
It
love
was
that.
I in signing off the episode of Joag that we did in your garden, I made some kind of off the cuff remark about this that moment popping up in the highlights of my life.
Right.
uh on when I'm fucking when my brain realizes it's about to die. And I meant that. I meant that sincerely. I saw some
Love it.
fantastic gigs. I had a fantastic generally with my brother and bestie Alan. We had a fantastic time when we went to see Smashing Pumpkins and Weezer. Just a wonderful night, pissing it down with rain. Uh in a really muddy field in Cardiff, seeing really wonderful music and really wonderful company. It's just, you know, moments of that nature. There have been some lovely milestones with my kids,
Yeah.
uh, seeing them kind of growing in confidence, hearing Peter's voice deepening, and watching them, play their instruments on stage. And yeah, Owen did his taekwondo grading a few weeks back, which
Oh my
was,
goodness.
oh, man, just beautiful. Just moments like that, really. There have been a lot of personal moments in my life that have been fucking great in 2024 that I'll always look back on. Yes,
I
it hasn't
absolutely
all
love
been
that.
smashing my face in public and
Right. There's been some nice things that
appearing
happened as
dead
well.
to friends.
Yeah, honestly, obviously you coming and having everyone come here and, fill my yard with love and
Yeah,
all of that stuff and getting to take everyone around the city and everything was just absolutely magical and a thing I looked forward to. I mean, I feel like I've been looking forward to since the beginning of this thing. Bringing you here, getting everyone together and it was just absolutely magical to finally get to do that.
it was.
And I had so much fun getting to, over all this time, it's like you and I talk every day and, have grown so close over these years and to be like I've seen where you live, and all that stuff and to finally be like, hey, you get to see my world felt really
Yeah.
special.
One of my, I mean, I say one of my favorite memories from that trip. All of it in itself is one big favorite memory. But a standout for me was just that morning stroll that we took around the track, around the running track,
Oh yeah,
just
yeah.
doing a couple of laps of that, and just existing in a completely
Right.
different spot. Um,
Yes, totally. We just went,
yeah.
we got some like coffee or whatever and just like
Mm,
walked around the track waiting for the pharmacy to open.
yeah.
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 Just you over here doing normal neighborhood things with me was just
Yes.
so cool, you know. It's
Yeah. It
like
was. It was.
your friend that you've never really gotten to like hang out with, you know. So it was so fun to have that. And then,
Yes.
you know, went on some very fun trips, obviously to Italy, and earlier loved being in Belgium and in Amsterdam and stuff like that. So really got some great travel in this year. That was a lot of fun. Um, you know, I always just really enjoy expanding the things that I've seen and all of that stuff. A thing I never thought I'd be able to do. So I
On
love it
the kind
every
of the
time.
American scale, you're kind of the boxes you can tick on the world map. You've got to be on the kind of the upper end of.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, I would imagine so. I mean, people give Americans shit. We've talked about this before about not having a passport or things like that, but it's a big country, you know,
Mm,
and people don't necessarily have a ton of money. So, yeah, people don't necessarily get to travel outside of this country all the time. So it's never lost on me that it's like a very cool privilege to get to do that. That Kia works in places that he can let me tag along on with his airline miles and all of that kind of stuff.
mm.
We're going to Japan in April, which will be super fun. And yeah, yeah, I've gotten to do a lot of cool stuff this past year in that way that I've really enjoyed. Yeah, I think like overall, it's been just a good year for me in general. Like just kind of uh, everything is rolling along well, and I haven't felt particularly stressed out. And I think this is a thing that kind of started, we talked about it at the beginning of 2023 too, but it's like when this podcast started, I felt like I was like in just such a place of stress and anxiety all the time and things like that, and having panic and everything. And at this point, just feel like things personally are in a space where I don't feel that kind of stress anymore and I don't feel that kind of anxiety. And like leaning into realizing that like you know things have to do with like my neurodivergence and stuff like that and like understanding that instead of trying to fight it and
Mm.
be a different person than I am and stuff like that um has made it so that I'm able to like manage myself better in a lot of ways and know what I need to do when I'm getting overwhelmed and all that. So yeah, 2024 was a good one for me as well.
Yeah, the way I've put it in other conversations with people is I'm such a fan of almost observing myself growing into my skin, almost,
Mm-hmm.
you know, taking a front seat in the process rather than being passive in it.
Right.
Um, I love aging. I
Yeah.
and all right, fair enough. I'm griping about the fact that I can't remember things and my eyes are fucking going to shit and my joints are hurting me. But I love aging. I love seeing my face evolve almost. I
Right.
love seeing
Yeah.
the lines deepen and I don't know. Man, how to put it? The every year tells itself more on my face, and I'm enjoying
Mm.
seeing them reflected back at me, I suppose.
Yeah, totally. It's so interesting. And
Mm,
and yeah, I think ultimately every year kind of gets better in that way, you
mm.
know? I don't think that there's really a time that I want to go back to. I think every year I become more uh
I agree
connected
with
to
that.
who
I
I
could
am and all of
not
that.
agree with that more. I wouldn't swap. I wouldn't swap who I am now for any of the other my other incarnations ever.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what about things we've seen this year? What are some of the
Uh,
highlights for you?
right. What do you want to do? Do you want to break this down? Let's talk. Do you want to talk TV first?
Sure, I didn't watch a lot of TV, so I don't have a lot to contribute to that. Although maybe when you say some things, maybe some of it'll
Well,
come to
let's have a
me.
think. It all seems to have been. top loaded. I mean, and maybe that's recency bias. I don't know, but
Right,
Penguin
yeah.
sticks out.
I do want to watch that. Yeah,
You
I
should
do need to
get
get
come
on
on,
it.
get busy.
I
You should
know,
watch
I know.
Penguin.
I
You'd
just
love it.
don't watch a lot of TV. And now I've got Astrobot.
Oh man,
Game of the year.
bar none. It's not even close. It's been a good gaming year actually. Ghostwire, I dove into God of War. I dove into played a bit more Red Dead, and then Astrobot to finish the year off.
Yeah,
Oh,
I was saying that like normally at the end of the year between Christmas and New Year's, I just read the whole time. But now I've got
mm,
Astrobot, so I've just been playing Astrobot constantly. I've done some reading, but I have just been playing that in all my free time because it's
yes,
just like,
and
oh, so fun.
we're gonna switch the roles for Let's Play in January. I'm
Yes.
gonna watch. We're gonna watch CoRri. Uh,
It'll be so funny because listen, I love the game, but I am not good at it. So you can just watch me
it's not the
fall
point.
off of things and get burned by
Yes.
things and all that kind of stuff over and over and over to the point of farce. And it'll
There are
be a good
some.
old time.
I don't know if if you've unlocked any yet, but there are some of the levels that are just like a straight course, and you've just got to survive to the end. Uh,
Ooh,
fucking hell!
there.
Just the difficulty curve on that game is so exquisite. It is just this perfect. You get it just before. Did I ever tell you about smashing my controller when I was playing Returnal? About
Yes.
war, just it
Yep.
never quite gets you to that
Right.
never quite gets me to that place where good
Yeah.
sense leaves me and the red mist descends and I just want to damage things. But it does get you to that place because when you die, it's always your fault. It's
Right,
always,
exactly. Because
if I
it's giving
just,
you so much leeway.
yes, if I just learn that pattern a bit better, if I just time that a bit better, I can do it. I can do it. And you can always do it. It's
Yes.
brilliant. A ritual. Yeah. Saying this out loud sounds ridiculous, but a ritual during one of those challenge levels of Astrobot is I found I would perform a little bit better if after dying and just before respawning, I would say out loud, King of Games, and then try the level again. I'm the King of Games. And that would help me. That
I
would
love that.
pump me up a little bit
I
to
mean, I like do essentially the same thing. I just don't have like a flashy tagline for it. I do like, all right, come
try
on,
it.
Corrigan,
No,
like
try
things
it.
like
Just say
that.
King of Games
King of Games. Let's see what
before you do it.
happens.
And you just it gives you that little boost.
Okay, give it a whirl. Let's
Yes.
see what happens.
Let me see. Agatha was great. Penguin was great. Was there more Telly? I don't think there was.
I mean, we disagree on this one, but Baby Reindeer, I loved. Um, yeah. Other than that, I can't even. I can't think of anything really that
You
I
know,
watched.
it looks very likely that real Martha is gonna get some millions of pounds out of
Oh,
that.
really? That's
Yes.
so crazy. She exposed
Uh,
herself. Like it is so wild. Like coming out and being like, "I'm who this is based on." And I feel
mm.
shitty about that. What? How does that work? Okay.
Yeah, we'll never agree on that. I still don't like it one bit.
That's fair.
And those two have been on various kind of end of year catch up kind of retrospective shows in the past couple of weeks,
What was the
mugging
other
about
one?
how Martha and whatever his fucking
Oh,
name is, Gad, is that his name, Richard
yeah,
Gad.
Richard Gere.
Um, she's not called Martha. Her real name
The
is something else.
actress, you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
Um, and it's just reignited how the sour taste in the mouth that show left me with.
Fair enough. But for
Bam
me,
bam
it is
bam
on my
bam bam
tops.
bam.
What about, did you read anything that hit you this year?
Well, I'm in the middle currently of a book called The Reformatory,
Mm, which I have
which
now
was
downloaded from my library from your
oh good.
texts about it.
I really, really, really hope you enjoy it as much as I'm doing it by Tananarive Dew and Tananarive Dew. I apologize. And it's man, it's selling it really, really short to call it a ghost story. It's got flavors of The Shining all over it.
Ooh, yes, please.
But it's told through the lens of racial segregation in Florida in the 1950s.
Nice.
And it is searing,
Mm,
searingly fucking good.
love it.
I'm finding it really hard to tear myself away from right now as I'm talking to you. I want to go read.
Like
It's
I just want to go
fucking
read now.
fucking great. It's teaching me a lot, but it's also a really accomplished page turner of a ghost story in itself.
Mm,
But the detail and the kind of authentic feeling experiences of, political, racial, class, economic segregation
Mm,
in that place in that time. Uh, it it's evocative as fuck. I'm enjoying it so much that what I'm doing, it's also got like it talks about the music of the time a lot, the music of the era a
mm.
lot, gospel and jazz. And as I'm reading it, whenever it mentions there's a song playing in the car or in a diner, I'm playing that song on my iPhone while I'm
I
reading it
love
just
it.
to kind of flesh out the experience for me.
That's so good.
Like Nat King Cole and other kind of singers at the time is fucking great. Oh, what a book! What a book!
Beautiful. Yeah, I'm looking forward to
And
reading that big time.
in a more, well, in an equally kind of Joag vein, I've got a book next lined up called Nothing to Fear, which is Nothing to Fear, Demystifying Death to Live More
Oh
Fully.
yeah. It's the book you bought for yourself that you forgot about, yeah?
Exactly that. I found it in a box when I was wrapping presents. Um, which is very highly regarded, very highly rated. Just a nice little read about death. That'll be a good
Amazing.
laugh. What about you?
Sure, yeah. I read a few books that I really liked this year. Not necessarily all from this year, but I for book club we read Slewfoot by Brahm, which is definitely one of my favorites of the year. I did talk about it on here before, but a very cool sort of witchcraft book dealing with sort of subjugation of women and things like that in a very religious society and loved it. Slewfoot by Brahm, big
Mm.
recommend. David Grann put out a book in 2023 called The Wager, A Tale of Shipwreck, Mutiny, and Murder. Come on, listen to
Oh,
that
come
title.
on. Ooh, hello.
It was a blast. Absolutely loved that one. Chuck Tingle put out Bury Your Gaze. Chuck Tingle is always a great time. What is that one?
Where, where's your book then?
My book?
Yes,
What book?
surely it's only a matter of time before you write a book. Surely,
That
surely.
actually, that is one of my goals for this year is on Fridays to actually write, and we'll see what comes out of that. If that is, a book or a diary or whatever, but I have set a goal on Fridays to take time to write. So,
I wonder
see
if
what
there's even
happens.
a because you've got at least half of 4.5 years worth of topics from the start
Right.
of each week's
I've considered
podcast.
that.
Is
Like, what if we put something together that was,
mm,
somehow wove our stories into something. Um, maybe that's part of this year in Joag. We'll see.
oh my God, that's a great idea.
Isn't it? It's a pretty good idea. Stay tuned. We'll see what we come
Oh my
up with. But it
God,
has
that is
crossed
a
my
great
mind before. Yeah,
idea.
it's a fucking great idea, Mark.
I can't believe I
Everything
never thought
everything
of
we
that.
touch turns to gold.
Fucking brilliant idea.
We'll discuss.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, but of books that already exist before we put out ours and change the world. Yeah,
Hmm.
Bury Your Gaze by Chuck Tingle is great. If you've never read Chuck Tingle, he is wonderful. I mean, known mostly on the internet for his Tinglers, his very absurd erotica books. I shouldn't say absurd because
Okay.
he always says they're very serious, but you see like it'll be something that like happened recently. Like I'm trying to think of like a good news story or whatever, but it would be like something like pounded in the butt by the CEO killer or something like that. Like he'll take
All right.
something like
Yes.
that
Okay.
and write like these short erotica books about them. And so that's like kind of what he's known for on the internet, but he also writes actual horror books. The one before this was Camp Damascus, which I absolutely loved, and then he just put one out this year called Bury Your Gaze. Read
Hmm.
it. It's excellent. It's a blast. He is a great writer. Um, and another one that I really loved that it didn't come out this year, but there was a documentary based on it this year that caused me to read it. I can't remember what the doc is called, but don't watch it if you come across it. I watched like half of an episode and I was like, this is the most exploitative thing I've ever seen in my life. And I went to see if I could read the story instead. And that story is called Hidden Valley Road Inside the Mind of an American Family. And it is about a family in which there were like six brothers and all of them had schizophrenia, and which is like exceedingly rare. And just basically this family is full of tragedy, and it is a really interesting story, and look at the like psychology of these guys and everything,
Uh-huh.
and genetics, and like, they're a family that, because of this anomaly and everything that happened to them, like there's a lot of interest in them from a psychological perspective. But it's a really great book, Hidden Valley Road. Big time recommend it. We both read The Heat Will Kill You First by Jeff Goodell. Big
Yes.
recommend that, but it is a downer. um,
Yes.
but also, I think one that provides some interesting ideas that are hopeful about climate change as well. It explains to you in no uncertain terms that we are all fucked, but it also is like there are some things people are doing, and how we should sort of get on board with that stuff.
Mm.
And also Doppelganger by Naomi Klein, also a 2023 book that both of us read this year. Read it. You
Yeah,
know.
on the just super briefly on the climate piece. I mean,
Mm,
I've never been more sure that any progress or any act of fixing air quotes the situation that we're in, I think can only now come about as a result of us accepting that we're fucked
Oh yeah,
and
absolutely.
kind of not, not being ready to abandon the systems that have fucked us, being ready to
Hmm.
just rip them up.
Yeah.
Um, but again, that's not an answer, is it?
Right. I mean, it's really a matter of all of us recognizing that uh we're very comfortable, and that is keeping us from taking action that,
Yeah. I mean,
because
what
of
have
the
you and I been talking
discomfort.
about for,
Yeah.
how great it's been a year for us both on
Right,
a
yeah,
personal
exactly.
basis.
Um, and that it will be uncomfortable to do anything because it's going to require dismantling a lot of things that bring us our comfort. Uh, but it's going to be a lot more uncomfortable in 30 years if the sun kills us.
Yes.
So, yeah, those are my book highlights. Any new music that hit you this year?
Um, Off the top of my head, no, that's a question I hadn't prepared for. I mean,
Oh, sorry.
which I, look, I'm not proud of it, but I'm more and more becoming a fucking playlist guy. Ugh. Uh, and as somebody who loves the format of an album, I've fucking always loved banging an
Yeah,
album on from start to finish. Banging out a 15K on a treadmill doesn't lend itself really well to consuming music in that
right.
format anymore. So
No, not so much.
there's loads of stuff that I've been enjoying, but not really in a format that I'm proud of adopting.
Right. Modern times, man, modern times.
Indeed.
But there is
Yep,
new
yep, yep, yep.
Bayside, so there's new Bayside this
Yes.
year, and that was beautiful.
Mm.
Um, I also, yeah, I don't
What
know
was
if
it called? Because I
anything.
think I've listened to a lot of it.
I'm trying to think off the top of my head, and I can't think of what it is either.
Because if the track, one of a Bayside track recently has become my rescue song. Um, and if
Yeah, and
it's
I
if
think
it's
it
from
was from the new album. Is the album called The Devils, or was that the song?
it's the there are worse things than being alive.
Yes, there are worse things than being alive.
Yes,
That's the
the
album.
song I'm talking about is called Already Gone, and it isn't off their new album.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah, that's right. I
Um,
forgot.
but fuck me, man, that's that track is like getting the star power up in a Mario game.
Yes, I
It's
love that.
you could take me to the brink of exhaustion, from the brink of exhaustion to just grinding out another burst. It's brilliant.
This is probably amongst my proudest things, is how much you like Bayside, because it was
They're
literally,
great.
I still remember that it was, like 5 years ago. I did that like 30 songs challenge or whatever on Instagram, and you were like, hold on, what's this one?
Mm.
And I was like, oh, it's
Mm.
Devotion and Desire by Bayside. And you were like,
Terrific.
and now that
Superb band.
yeah, listen
I
to them
think the
makes
way
me
I
very
described them
happy.
to you is what if brand new, but 30 times heavier,
Right.
and to the best of my knowledge, not a single sex pest.
Yeah, no, as far as I know, not so much, which is
Mm.
great.
Yes.
So let's,
That is good, isn't
yeah, it's so rare. Let's main event it. Movies. What are your
it?
big
Okay.
flicks this year?
All right, here we fucking go. None of this will be news to you.
Right. Yeah.
Uh,
All things we've
but
discussed.
just to smash through from the beginning of the year, Dune Part 2, fucking great, right?
You,
Fucking
I
great.
forgot that you liked that one. That one did nothing for me, but a lot of
Mm,
people really loved it.
fucking fantastic. Just real chewy, real big, like a side of beef, that fucking film, but in sci-fi form. Monkey Man, fantastic. Love Lies Bleeding,
Yes.
fantastic.
Yep.
Abigail, fantastic.
Yep.
Let me see. First Omen. What business did that have been so good? What?
It was a surprising one. Yeah.
Quiet Place.
Yes.
Uh, I don't care what face you make when I say in a violent nature.
I knew it was gonna come up.
Of course, how could it not? How could it not? I will always, 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 always champion just a big swing. Try something different. Take a format that we think we know and just
Should have
squeeze
swung
it and
harder.
twist it a little bit. No. Long legs all day long. All day. Listen, it's just a little
Yes.
indie horror, Nick. All right, don't be extra. Um, Alien Romulus, Inside Out
hmm
2. I cried all of the salt from my body. I had to literally eat salt
That one
afterwards.
didn't really do anything for me either.
I had to
Yes.
lick salt like a horse after that film. Cuckoo, amazing.
I still have
Terrifier
to see
3,
that.
Cuckoo's lovely. Ah, you
Yeah, Anna was just raving about it this week
yeah,
on Hell Rankers too.
yes. But then in the upper echelons, Terrifier 3, Smile 2, but the year belonged to the substance.
I'm a reverse for you, but it's like such a close
Yeah,
like thing that it's like it's barely a difference. Smile 2 gets the absolute top for
yeah.
me. I could watch that movie every single day and be happy as can be. I enjoyed it in the theater. I watched it again, then I watched it a third time with Keo, and having him react to it was just
Mm,
made it even better. Like enjoying someone else is seeing Smile 2 and experiencing it for the first time was like, oh, it's beautiful.
yes.
But the substance was so great that like obviously it's razor thin line between my first and second place here.
I mean it. It owned the entire year for me. Uh, I saw. I'm going to go ahead and call him a fool earlier on Blue Sky, complaining that the substance, man, I mean, it was hardly subtle, was it? Get
Yeah,
fucked,
I
pal.
think I saw the same one and I was like,
Sorry, mate.
that
You
wasn't what it was aiming
you
for.
are you are you are leveling the wrong criticism at the wrong movie. It is
Right.
not. It isn't meant to be. It's a scream of a
It
film.
never
It
makes
is
the claim that it is trying to be
not
subtle.
even one fucking time. It paints its themes in lurid fucking lycra neon and gore right in front of you. It is brave. It is hilarious. It's tightly written. It's got the best influences, and not just the obvious ones either. It's influenced by far more. It derives from a far wider pool of influence that you might think.
hmm
There's Kubrick in there. There's Lynch in there.
Yeah.
Fuck. It exists on the very edges of what a horror movie can and should be, and
Right.
it is just a real piece of work, and I fucking loved it. It owned the year.
I also saw two men discussing yesterday on Blue Sky how like, oh, it wouldn't have gone down that way if it had been me taking the substance or whatever. And like they completely it was like, oh, just set yourself up as her manager and then
Yeah,
like
yeah,
enjoy
yeah. I've
your
seen the
week off.
thread.
And I was
Yeah.
like, this is like a just such a wonderful example of men fully not getting the point.
Completely,
Like
completely.
someone said this movie isn't subtle. Here are two guys who did not get what this movie was about at all, right?
Yes.
Like, sure, you may think it beat you over the head with it, but there are still guys who have no fucking clue
That's the
what
kind of thing
this
that I
was
would say as a
saying.
bit.
Well, that's the thing is when I saw the first one, I was like, oh, ha, 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 that's like something Mark would say. And then I read the rest of the conversation. I was
Yeah.
like, what? Guys, come on.
Yes.
But
What have I
yes,
missed? Any of yours?
I'm not sure, but did you say Heretic on there?
I
Heretic for
did.
sure.
I did.
You mentioned Beetlejuice, but I just want to say, that really was just like a deep love for me,
Mm.
like a real return for me. It was like it was something I didn't even know I needed and wanted so badly,
Yes.
and then when it like got to me. I was like, yes, this hits me in the heart space in a way I was
Yes.
not expecting. Milk and Cereal, the short film, I mean, like hour-long film on YouTube. Like, I think, just low budget swing. Um, and it worked better for me than for you, but I think you would agree that just someone making something like
Oh,
that and putting it out
again,
and
I applaud the industry of that film.
yeah,
Absolutely.
totally. And I think that one is so worth watching. Also, Corrie's the short film by Connor O'Malley, who, is just sort of an absurdist comedian, put out this just really horrifying short that is very much worth watching and is also on YouTube. Corrie's spelled Coreys, not like
Mm.
my name, obviously. But I think, he's a wildly underrated comedian, and this film kind of flew under the radar, but is super worth watching. Ghost, right here, right now.
I did mention it, but
Oh,
yeah,
did
I've
you?
watched it. I've watched it
Okay.
a few times since having the disc for Christmas, and ah,
Yeah, it's just so much fun. If you
yeah,
like Ghost, there's nothing not to like there. And if, like me, when you heard of them, you went and then watched all of their YouTube things and stuff like that, it's very fun little, all these continuations that are happening
they
in the
are
little.
they are a band with the world in the palm of their hand right now, and they
Oh,
deserve every
absolutely.
single bit of it. They're
Yeah, for
fucking
sure.
so inventive and creative, and just great at what they do.
Yeah, definitely. Otherwise, I think pretty much aside from those ones that you mentioned that I didn't like that you did, I think the list is pretty much exactly the same. Otherwise, we had all
Yes.
the same like really top tier loves over the course of the year. And there's so many of them. Like it was just such a
Mm,
good year. Like when the year started out, I was a little like I don't know. Nothing's come out that's really like hit me. And then like the last 6 months of the year was just banger after banger after banger after banger.
yeah.
It was such a good year for horror movies.
And no reason at all to think that there's not another one ahead.
Yeah.
I don't feel I've asked this question for a while, right? So maybe
Okay.
this, we've run over, so maybe this is how we'll end this, right?
Yeah, do it.
If if as we've fucking spoken about ad nauseum, if horror is in such a healthy place, right? And if it's such a moneymaker, which it is, you can put fucking so many asses in seats for not a great deal of layout in terms of budget.
Yeah.
And franchise horror is huge as well, you know.
Oh, I see where
Where's
we're
my
going.
boy? Where's my boy? Where's Freddy, man?
Oh
Where's Freddy?
man, where is Freddy? That is the question. In 2025, will we find out?
Maybe this
I
is
don't
the
know.
year.
Maybe this is it, finally.
Where's my boy?
Darling friends, maybe you make the Freddy movie. Maybe you write the books. I don't know. But let us know what are you looking forward to this year? What were your highlights from the past year? Anything we answered, you answer. Keep us in the know. We're all
Yes,
friends here, and we want to hear about your takes on all of this stuff. Anything else that everyone needs? Oh, next week we'll do Void shout outs, of course.
certainly. Yes,
So if
yes,
you're
yes,
not
yes,
already
we
on the
shall.
Ko-Fi, get on that Ko-Fi so you can get a
Give
shout
you
out
some
from the
words of
Void.
wisdom to carry you into the coming
Mm,
year.
yes. We got the fan cave coming up, so make sure that you watch 10 Cloverfield Lane if you haven't seen it
Oh,
lately, because we'll be
beautiful.
discussing that. We'll be playing Astrobot. We do need to pick a
We do need
movie
to
for
watch along
snack
also.
to
We need
the
a
we need a watch along.
yes.
We need a movie about the
Ah,
future for our snack the future. Guys,
oh,
we are
much
coming in
stuff
hot.
coming
We
up.
are
Fucking
coming
hell. You
in
serious?
hot. Check
Christ.
out the
We're gonna
book
write a
club.
book.
Yeah, we're gonna do it all, man. Every year is our year, and 2025 is no different. Let's fucking go.
Yeah, man. And we love the knowledge and the truth that you're going to be here with us every step of the way, friends.
Amen. So go ahead and just stay spooky for us.
I was going to add something then, but it would have been surplus.